Dzień dobry widzowie, dzień dobry, dzień dobry, dzień dobry. Kanał Diablo 4, Campfire chat, update odnośnie nowego sezonu.
Use combinations of tuning stones to transform a seemingly simple skill into something truly crazy.
Siema widzowie, dzień dobry, witam bardzo serdecznie.
Vaults are seasonal dungeons that are filled with a high concentration of deadly traps.
O kurde, nie było tej typiary wcześniej, nie? Dajcie mi tylko zdać, czy stream na YouTubie działa.
When the player enters a vault, they are met in a familiar area of sanctuary. Then, the player teleports to the vault proper, encountering great challenges.
Dzień dobry YouTube, dzień dobry, działa widzowie.
Construct family in them, but also new traps built for this season.
Players are going to discover many new hazards inside
pułapki
these vault
z tego.
spaces. You know, whether it is spinning pillars shooting out flames or other traps.
Ej, oni w Path of Exile się bardzo inspirują. Przecież to bez kitu laby, nie? Niedługo wprowadzą. Wondertoss, dzięki za 6 miesiąc i HMC, dzięki za pierwszy. Ty, no laby, pa.
Zoltan's warding is a special buff players can get by interacting with the statue of Zoltan Cool when they enter a vault, if they have a Pearl of Warding. Ward-woven chests are special chests players can interact with at the end of a vault if they have enough stacks of Zoltan's warding left over. If a player has more than one stack, they can open a rare ward-woven chest. Those have even better rewards. This
O Jezu, 3 legendy z jednego chesta.
Diablo 4.
This is going to be a fight against this massive protective golem meant to watch over the vaults. The Malthus, once again, has managed to corrupt and control.
Because it's stationary, it
Ty,
gives us the
nowy boss
opportunity to
całkowicie.
include some of the season's new traps into the arena. This presents a lot of unique and new mechanics for the players to navigate and fight.
The player is going to need to bring all of their
Nowe
skills and
koszulki
abilities
mają.
to bear as they try to destroy and fight off these Malthus-controlled constructs. They're also going to make good use of their own seneschal, make sure they remain upgraded in the fights to come. The Gauntlet is a new, thick-seed, non-linear dungeon where players have a fixed amount of time to achieve high scores by proving their might. Any player who unlocks World Tier 4, Torment Mode, can
Gauntlety
compete in the
stary.
Gauntlet. The Gauntlet starts several weeks into the season of the construct. At the beginning of each week, a new Gauntlet replaces the current one.
Co on powiedział?
Unlike other
Several
dungeons,
weeks
every
into?
time you and other players enter the Gauntlet that week, it will be exactly the same. Same monster positions, same affixes, everything. This makes it a fair competition. Additionally, monsters within the
Jak kilka
Gauntlet start
tygodni
at
po
level 100.
wystartowaniu
This is
sezonu
meant to
ma...
test your fully leveled up and geared out build. It's highly
Nie no,
replayable,
przecież to nie ma
enabling a
sensu.
broad set of player choices. Players can try different classes and strategies for achieving high scores. Leaderboards are a place for top players to compete with one another in the Gauntlet. These reset each week when a new Gauntlet appears. There are solo leaderboards for each class, as well as party leaderboards that vary with party size. And of course, there are a set of
Nie no,
leaderboards
nie
just for
gadajcie, że
hardcore
gra,
players.
która ma content na
Some
dosłownie
players may not be
10
ready
godzin
for that type
grania,
of play.
co
So we've
sezon,
created goals for them as well.
odpali Gauntlet, ale
Each
z takim
leaderboard has a
delayem.
ladder that you climb to reach it.
Oni nie
Each
są
rung of the
grinding
ladder
gear
awards a
games,
seal
że
you
mogą
can show
sobie
off.
miesiąc po
And when
sezonie
you earn the
Gauntlet
seal of the
odpalić.
worthy, you'll be ready for leaderboard competition. Can't wait to see you in Sanctuary.
Ty no, ale wreszcie jakieś dodatkowe elementy gameplayowe dodają, nie? Zobaczcie, jakieś laby, jakiś Gauntlet. Idzie to w dobrą stronę, ale nadal podstawa itemizacji jest tak do dupy.
Hello, Diablo community.
Jeżeli z
Welcome
tego
to
nie wyjdzie.
another Diablo 4
Imo.
developer update livestream.
I'm pretty excited.
Jest,
So I'm
wreszcie
really going to be going over
prezentacja.
3 different major topics today when we talk
No
about
chyba od
what's
tego
coming in
powinni
for season 3
zacząć,
and beyond.
kurwa.
So the first one is, I think, what everybody expects. We have some new class updates coming. A little bit of a caveat here, though. I'm not going to be going over every single node or every single update, but I am going to give you kind of a high level of what's coming for every class. But you'll definitely find out some more stuff when you look into the patch notes and see other things we're doing. And patch notes are going to be coming out very soon, like tomorrow. Is my
Tomorrow,
understanding.
actually,
So-
yeah. They're
Yeah.
coming out tomorrow, so players can
Jutro
expect to
patch,
see them
widzowie,
tomorrow.
jesteście
We'll give you a
gotowi na
preview
niego?
today, but you'll see the full patch notes tomorrow.
Correct. So it'll be a preview, but you'll still get an idea of kind of what we're thinking and what we're doing. Next, I want to do a brief explanation of kind of how we currently view class balance. The game's gone through a lot. We've been out for a little while. We also have the Gauntlet coming.
Kurwa, przecież
so,
od tego
a
powinni
lot of
zacząć
changes
tą
coming, and we're going to
prezentację,
be
no.
adapting to it. And then the last thing is kind of a roadmap for
Ale
our
tego
plans
typa
for
muszą
seasonal
boleć
updates
plecy
going
od
forward.
kierowania
I kind
tego
of want to
Diablo
give people
4.
some more concrete ideas of when we update and how we update.
Siema,
first we're gonna
Burdeczki.
start
Z
with
Diablo
the class
4 będzie
updates.
stream skracany,
So
widzowie.
first for the Barbarian, we got a few things going on. The first one is some big improvements to charge. You know, right now charge
Aha,
is
będzie charge
you need a bunch
barbarzyńca
of
z
different
Diablo 3.
legendaries and other effects to make it really
Ja
kind of seen and be powerful. And we're going to be moving a
Mówiłem
lot
wam,
of
że oni
power to
robią
the
wszystko,
baseline
żeby z
skill
Diablo
for
4
legendaries and
zrobić
other
Diablo
effects.
3.
It's going to do a lot more damage now than it did before. We might be insane, but I think it's really cool, and so we're going to do it.
Chcą zrobić
But you can
koncept
see here kind of season
barbarzyńcy
2 what the damage
wokół
numbers look like.
szarży
You know, did like
i dodać
1200
mu
in season
moce.
3. It's like
Kurwa,
12,000,
strasznie mi
you know,
się to
like,
kojarzy z
like
barbarzyńcą
8x or
szarżującą
something
z
like
Diablo
that. So it's
3.
going to do a lot of damage now, baseline. Of course, legendaries are adjusted to compensate, but yeah, you should have a lot more fun with it out the gate. We're also doing a lot of buffs to key passives, such as Walking Arsenal, to kind of keep them up to date with the one that most people pick, that shall not be named. And then also we're adjusting a lot of shouts. You know, we got a lot of feedback that players don't really like
Chcą
feeling
mieć
kind of mandatory
kilka
that they put all the
buffów
different shouts
naraz
on
na
their
jednym
bar. I
pasku.
played a Barbarian
Wreszcie.
last season. I know how it feels. So we're trying to kind of walk this line where we want it to be fun and you can put all the shouts on your bar, but it's not required and you kind of feel like there's good reasons not to. So we've done some changes there.
A, nie.
And, you know, if I were a betting man, I'd say I'd put my money into, you know, charge and maybe some key passives as far as things that I think you'll be happy to see. So I think you'll be kind of happy with our changes there.
You know, Adam, whenever we have you on, you have to talk about class
Memik,
songs.
ale
And
źle
this is-
zrobione oczywiście.
I
Class
do like my
songs.
Bo nie
stuff.
wiedzą, że w tym memiku trzeba błędnie
So next,
wpisać
let's go
nazwę
over to the
czegoś.
sorcerer. Again, these aren't all the changes. These are just high-level stuff.
Powinien wpisać
First
charts.
one is, you know, we know that sorcerer players
Memy
kind of have some
śmieszne,
pain
ale
trying
robimy
to apply
boomerzy,
vulnerable
którzy
to
nie
enemies,
rozumieją.
so we're giving it to lightning spear now. So just baseline, lightning spear
można
when it
z
crits
błędem
enemies
charge
will now
wpisać?
make them vulnerable. So you have another
tego
avenue
mema.
there that isn't Frost Nova to consistently apply it.
Charg stąd.
We also have some buffs to various Paragon legendary nodes that you can look forward to that kind of open up or make some things stronger. And last but not least, for you Meteor fans, Meteor build is getting quite a few updates and buffs across the board.
Kurwa, build pod
We also are
Meteory teraz
giving
będzie.
giving them a new unique
Kurwa,
that
dziwny
kind of
zbieg
changes how you
okoliczności,
think
bo
about
w
it and how
Diablo
it
3
plays,
też
that I'll
był
be showing
build
off
pod
in a little
Meteory.
bit. So,
Tak
Can't wait
samo
to-
jak był
can't wait
build
to see
pod
it.
szarże
So
dla
good.
barbarzyńcy.
It's so good.
yeah, totally. So again here,
Kurwa.
Meteor players and Elemental
Ciekawe,
Summoner
skąd oni
players,
biorą
like the ones that like
inspirację.
to use the different
No way.
conjurations. We got some stuff there in the legendary or the Paragon legendary node space that should make you happy.
No way.
And next we've got the Rogue. So we've got quite a few changes coming to the Rogue. There's a lot of buffs to really underused skill and skill upgrades. You know, a lot of people use, you know, Twisting Blades and Poison Imbue and things like that. And we're really targeting some of the things that people aren't using so much and giving them some love. In particular, we're targeting range builds to make them more viable and fun. I think it's the Precision Key passive is getting a bit of a rework, and a lot of stuff coming for things like Penetrating Shot and stuff like that. And we're also updating pretty much all the range uniques, including Windforce, Skyhunter, and Eaglehorn. They're going to be quite a bit more usable and powerful, I think.
Jaki był build na
So
Demon
here,
Huntera w
again, some
Diablo
buffs
3?
coming really to range builds in general, and also Caltrops, which is a bit of an underused skill that we're giving some love. And then we got the Druid next. So here we've got some buffs coming to various spirit boons that
Kurwa,
aren't seen
to...
as much
Ty,
play as
ale nie
others. As an example,
pokazali,
Prickle Skin
jakie
is the one that
skille
gives you
dokładnie
some thorns.
zupdate'ują.
The amount there is being increased by a
W
lot.
sensie
You can see
pokazali
here Season
kilka, ale nie
2 is about
pokazali
300
idei
at this
buildu,
level,
bo nie było
and
w
in
Diablo
Season
3
3, I
takiego
think it's gonna be
buildu.
about 4x what it used to.
A multishot i
some big
wieżyczki,
buffs
aha,
coming
czyli
to various
pokazali.
spirit boons that are underused.
Nigdy nie grałem Demon Hunterem w Diablo 3 garce.
And then also Rabies is getting quite a few upgrades. We got a new legendary coming in for Rabies. That's
O,
pretty neat.
przepychanie
And we also have a
torców,
buff
których
to enhance
nigdy im
rabies,
się
so
nie udało
for all of you
przepchnąć.
that love spreading your poisons among enemies, you're gonna be a little bit happy this
Cały
is free.
zestaw statystyk zbudowany już od
So
Diablo
here again,
3,
we got some buffs.
wokół
I put
czegoś,
Rabies here, but also Lightning Storm, and we'll be showing off a new
czego
unique
nie
there too.
potrafią
I'm actually probably
wykorzystać.
gonna play Lightning
Ej,
Storm
no
in
są to
Season 3 because it's got a
przypychają.
really cool unique coming. that we're gonna
Torcy, kurwa, nie mają sensu w
So
tej
you'll have
grze.
that to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you to show these uniques. I think people are gonna
Zaraz będzie sklep
probably
wizowy.
cater their builds for those classes to some of those uniques.
They're pretty. I mean, we have uniques coming for every class. We're just going to be
Yeah.
showing those two off today. Again, not everything, but they're pretty cool. Last but not least, we've got Necromancer. So Blood and Iron Golems. So fun fact for those of you who didn't know, but the Bone Golem, when it attacks enemies with its normal attack, it actually cleaves and hits nearby enemies. And the Blood and Iron Golems didn't, and they were very jealous and unhappy.
Okay.
And so we just decided to give it to them. So now all your
Mamy
golems,
splasha.
your golem friends are going to AoE cleave when they attack. I didn't
Niemożliwe,
mention
kto
put in a
wpadł
note
na
here,
to,
but
że
also
w
just
hack and
golems
slash
in
jest
general
fajnie
are
mieć
getting some
mele
buffs. I
splasha.
think even some other minion buffs across the board.
Kurwa.
But you can see those in the patch notes. And then a quality of life change coming is that Bone Prison, friendly players and your minions can now move through them. We've seen some situations, I know I've played it, where you'll Bone Prison an enemy and you're a minion build, and then your minions actually can't get to the enemy, or they want to go somewhere else and the Bone Prison actually blocks them. So now you and your friends will just be able to go through it. It'll be a lot more usable. And then we got a lot of Bone Spirit upgrades, including a redesign of one of the aspects, which is the aspect of Swelling Curse. I think Bone Spirit players are going to be really happy. So you can see here, on the left is kind of the old version of Bone Spirit, and it basically dealt increased damage based on distance traveled, and the gameplay there was you want to be kind of far away from your enemy and then let it slowly creep towards them.
Nie
and
no,
do more
zajebisty
damage.
stary
But
ten.
it turns out Bone Spirit
Masz
players really just kind of
25%
shotgun it and
więcej
try and
kryta
get
na
next to
skillu.
enemies, so it
Wow,
wasn't really
no
very
way.
usable or good most
No
of the
way.
time. So now we
Skill
changed
zupełnie
it where this
inaczej będzie
legendary
działo,
gives
ale
you
będzie
everything
w
a
chuj
Bone Spirit
ciekawszy
player
teraz
would
do
want. You
używania.
get
Nie mogę
more
patrzeć
crit
na to.
chance on Bone Spirit, which means its CDR goes down thanks to its upgrades. And then when you hit enemies, your max essence is temporarily increased, which means more damage on Bone Spirit. So this really just kind
No.
of gives you everything that you want.
Kurwa, legenda daje ci więcej damage'a na skillu. Giga będzie
And so
ciekawa.
here again, we got some buffs coming to Bone Spirit and to Golems for the Necromancers. So if you use either of those, I think you'll be eating pretty well this season. And again, these are just some examples. We got a lot more stuff in the patch notes for everybody. Next, let's go over the couple of new uniques. So the first one is that Meteor one I
Unique.
talked about. So this unique is the Starfall Coordinate. It basically being like a spender skill into a charge-based skill. So now you can actually run Meteor with other things like Fireball or Incinerate or Firewall, and it makes it into a very powerful
Kurwa, to
cooldown-based
dobrze
skill that
wygląda.
summons a bunch of meteors.
To jest
It
dobrze
also
wyglądająca
synergizes
legenda,
with your
ale ma
enchantment,
zbyt duży delay
and you
niestety
basically just
Meteor.
drop a lot more meteors on around like carpet bombing enemies with them. It's pretty
Tak
awesome.
powinny wyglądać legendy w tej grze.
And then the next one is the new Druid unique. This is for
Pepsi
Lightning
wróciło.
Storm. Basically, what this does is it makes your Lightning Storm grow quicker, so you can get up to that maximum amount. I think it's 4 or 5 stacks really quickly. And then also, when your Lightning Bolts crit, an additional Lightning Bolt will come down and do more damage. And that additional Lightning Bolt also, it's still a Lightning Storm Lightning Bolt. So you get all of your synergies with all of your other effects. So basically, it turns into lightning everywhere.
Aoe,
Which is
dostajesz
pretty
na
cool when
skillu.
you combine
Dobra
all of
kurwa
the other,
legenda.
Lightning-based legendaries and stuff.
Budujesz sobie większe AOE. No kurwa, to jest wreszcie taka legenda, jakiej ta gra potrzebuje. To ta gra potrzebuje jeszcze 200 takich legend.
So one of the things that we've been talking about a lot on the team is kind of thinking about how should we be updating the game when it comes to buffing and nerfing classes and builds, and then also how often should we update it. And I kind of want to get a little into the weeds here to understand where we're coming from. So first is that we want to balance kind of two competing concepts that are always at odds with each other that we believe players want that really make for a fun game and a fun experience, particularly in Diablo 4. But this is honestly kind of true for most games as far as when they update when it comes to balance. So the first one is we believe that players really want to feel like you all can have fun with powerful builds that you discover. Kind of a core part of playing these games is you think outside the box, or you discover something, or maybe even you follow a guide, but you find something that's really cool and awesome, and then you want to go wreck demons and kill stuff with it, right? You want to feel like you have this sense of permanence where you can make something, it's going to be cool, and you can go and have fun with it. But then on the flip side, here we also believe that players want the meta to refresh, so that the same things aren't obviously the best choices forever. Right? Looking back at Season 2, easy thing to point to is Ball Lightning, right? Ball Lightning was really fun and awesome. Newsflash, it was also kind of bugged. But, during Season 2, a lot of people had a lot of fun with it.
Nie,
But
oni
we
nie
believe that,
rozumieją, nie
if we
rozumieją
just kept
podstaw
things like Ball
buffowania
Lightning or
rzeczy.
Hoda Barb or these things that are really powerful for many seasons over and over,
Kurwa,
not
ale
only sorcerer players
dokładnie
in the
to
case
samo
of
jest
Ball
w
Lightning,
też
but
masz
even players
bonusza
of other
teraz,
classes would
i
start
masz
to feel this
starter
kind
dla
of
każdego,
gravitational pull
do
and a
którego
lot of
ludzie
pressure to
wracają,
play the things that are obviously
ale cały
more
czas
powerful
robią
than other
inne
things.
buildy, które są
And then players
ciekawe,
start to
które
feel
ludzie
pigeonholed
testują
as being
i
forced to
przychodzą
play
do
very
mety.
specific things. And so kind of this dichotomy of these two competing factors where you want to have a sense of permanence and finding things and having fun and not being afraid that Blizzard's going to take it away from you, but you also want to have a sense of, the same thing isn't strong forever, and you look at the leaderboards or you look on forums or wherever you look for your feedback, and everybody just is playing the same things, and you feel like not everything is viable, right? So, in this vein, some of the larger changes that you're going to see in Season 3 that are kind of bug fixes or nerfs, and, you know, before, a lot during BlizzCon and before we've talked about how you want to give players a heads up of what's coming.
Dzięki,
So
Warwick
these are the
Tickets,
things you're going to see
dopiero
at the launch
suba.
of Season 3 that are kind of they're having their power lowered. The first one is the Ball Lightning enchantment, or enhancement, sorry, is causing it to deal, well, you know, too much damage, obviously. The rogues have also been getting extra combo points via very specific unique interactions. That's made them very powerful. Twisting Blades, again on the rogue, and Poison Imbue have had some interactions that we're cleaning up that makes it do
Widzowie,
more
zaraz
damage
będzie
than was
sklep.
intended.
Spokojnie.
The Druid very recently kind of climbed to the top of the power level in the game due to kind of an unfortunate interaction with Blurred Beast, where you can double dip damage. And then really, we've had a couple cases like this earlier in the game, so we're redesigning this legendary power, where you can kind of apply a dot or some effect, and then something else does damage based on the dot, or dealing damage on something else, and then that damage double dips, and then just goes into crazy town really quick. So we're nipping that in the bud. For the Barbarian, the Hammer of the Ancients, the Violent Hammer of the Ancients, which is one of the upgrades that you can get, was always being applied whether or not you had it, and we're cleaning that up. So basically, everybody would always take the other upgrade, and then they were getting both. And then Overpower, this is more of an oversight, not a bug, but it was kind of just too strong in general. If you remember when Season 2 launched, we redid all the combat math in the game, and back then Overpower, nobody was really playing it. And then we really wanted to give it some love, and we definitely did. So it's a little bit too strong right now, and so it's just getting toned down. And now next I want to talk about our season roadmap. Kind of, when we were talking about how we think about how often we should update the game, we wanted to let you, the community, know kind of what the conclusions we came to and what we're going to be doing. So right now our plan is to update the game twice per season when it comes to class balance, and really just class updates. We're going to do one update at the launch of a season where you're going to see more kind of large-scale things. The meta is kind of expected to shift a little more. And then we also plan to do a mid-season update, and that'll come somewhere around the center of the season, depending on the exact dates of patch cycle. So you'll get a little bit smaller of an update there, but still something that'll, do a bunch of buffs, and we're going to go into detail of what you can expect from these. So first, let's talk about season launch and what you can expect when a new season comes, when it comes to classes and systems, so on in balance. So the first thing is we're going to be giving you some new content. You can count on this. We're going to be giving new legendaries and uniques that are added to the game. The amount that we do can be variable, but what we can commit to is that every class should be
Czuję się
getting
jak w pracy
something
to
new in
oglądając. To
this
jest
space.
chyba
So you can
ostatni
expect
kurwa
some
season
amount of new
update, który
legendaries,
oglądam do Diablo
some
4
amount of new
serio.
uniques that'll give you new toys to play
Nie
with.
pierdolę, nie oglądam chyba
Next, there
następnego.
are balance updates. We'll be doing both balance and design updates for all the classes. And by design updates, I mean, some more in-depth things where we change around functionality rather than just moving numbers up and down. Again, the amount is variable here. It kind of depends on the needs of the game at the time and how much other stuff that we're doing. But as a general idea, just so you can know what to expect, we plan to do many buffs to things that are underperforming, a few nerfs to the things that are really overperforming, and then bug fixes, which can honestly be both buffs or nerfs, depending on what the actual bug is. And then we also
jest
plan to do
oglądanie
other
dla
game
memu,
updates.
no,
Our
już tak
team
po
isn't really
prostu.
only just doing classes. We also look at monster balance and feel. We do systems with drop rates and things like that. How quickly players can get things that let them have
No
access
przecież
to
to
different
oni co
types
sezon
of
mówią,
content,
że
all of that.
zbalansujemy, dodamy
So you can expect that
legendarki,
beginning of the
uniki,
season.
dodają 2 i essa.
And then last but not least are larger updates and initiatives, right? These aren't guaranteed every season, but we want to launch these when they're ready. These are kind of, the big things that really shake up the game and change how players
Co
fundamentally
kurwa
interact with things.
sezon? Gadają
An
to
example
samo.
of some things here, or a couple things that we did in Season 2, we updated the resistance math and combat math to the game, and that was kind of a really big change of just how players interact with monsters and how they interact with their
Gra
stats
nadal
and how they scale
niegrywalna.
things. But we also do support for other things that might not seem so obvious, like content like Abattoir of Zir, where we have to go and look at the monsters, we have to look at the scaling, we have to when they do these things. So, we support all of those larger updates and initiatives as well, and you can expect these kinds of things going forward in seasons. But again, not every season. Just depends on when it's ready to come out. And next, let's talk about the mid-season patch and kind of what that looks like. So the first thing is we want to bring back previous season fan favorites. One of the nice things about a seasonal kind of
Dlaczego
model
w
for a
połowie
game is that
sezonu
we can
wprowadzają
experiment
rzeczy
with
z
things and then
poprzednich
bring back the
sezonów?
things that work. So an example of where we did this before was the Malignant Reigns. A lot of the Malignant Hearts in Season 1 had really cool designs that people really liked and got attached to. And we were able to bring that back in the form of unique greens, right? Going forward, we think that the way that we bring back these designs could be legendaries, uniques, or even other ways, right? Like we can maybe just add it as paragon nodes or passives or actives or other ways, skill tree. We don't really want to be limited to it must always be uniques or it must always be legendaries. But what we do want to limit ourselves to is that we definitely want to promise that we can do one thing per class. And we also think we can pull from all seasonal designs, not only from the previous season, right? If the design of the power mechanic of a season doesn't really fit into something that's evergreen for players, then we don't want to be limited to trying to shoehorn it in. We may just bring back, maybe a lot of Malignant Hearts or a lot of Blood Seals people really got attached to. We don't want to be limited to like, oh, we can only bring back 4 or 5 things. And then we can never bring more. So we're just gonna kind of look like what happened in the past and people liked, and then bring some of those.
Czego 1/3 Queena.
And then the balance updates. We also want to do this in the mid-season patch. The scope of this will be smaller compared to the beginning of the season.
też wygląda.
And we also want to do other game updates. Like I said before, to monsters, systems, drop rates, and some of those things.
MKR mówi, że ja jak nie hejtuję Diablo 4,
and then we
to
will
mam
be doing
100
bug
widzów,
fixes, and these will be
a
both
sam
buffs
teraz
and
ma
nerfs,
100
and
widzów,
we'll go into a little more detail
ale
of that in a
karma
minute.
powróciła, nie?
And then we're really going to try and hit
Niesamowite.
this goal. No promises. These are famous last words for me, but we want to try and do few to no nerfs that really aren't bugs.
A to i tak
And our
rekord
kind of
widzów
thinking and
mówicie?
philosophy here is that we know that unlike the beginning of a season, players spent a lot of time
Może
farming
zazdrościł
for
tych
these
100,
things,
może.
and we don't want
Przeważnie
you
mam
to be
50.
scared of making powerful stuff and then knowing that we're going to take it away if it's too
Zabawne
strong,
to jest,
right?
no nie?
And we
Że
want to
sam
have a sense
zaczął
of permanence when you start a season. You can try and
wytykać
target something that's
rzeczy
cool
takie
and
ludziom
then finish it.
statystyczne, co się obróciło w
But,
taki sposób, że
sometimes
teraz
we
jemu
need
to
to,
ludzie
something's way too
wypominają.
far out of control, particularly now that we have the gauntlet coming in. And we
course,
are planning to
kupiłem
broadcast the nerfs,
więcej.
whether they're design or bug fixes, before the mid-season update, so that you have an idea of what's coming, so that you can adjust your builds and play accordingly. So now let's give a couple examples here of kind of, if these things had existed in Season 3 and beyond, how would we think about and how would we handle these in a mid-season patch? So, in Season 2, like I mentioned before, the Hammer of the Ancients, this upgrade, Violent Hammer of the Ancients, was just always being applied, right? Basically, overpower builds were just getting 30% more multiplicative damage for free. It was a bug, not intended at all. This is something that we would fix in a mid-season patch. So, like, if this happened in Season 3, you could expect that in the mid-season patch,
Oddam
we
życie
would
za
bug fixes,
ludologię.
and, that would be a nerf to that build. On the other hand, a little bit more complicated one. So if you remember Ossified Essence, you Necromancer players, this was your key passive, and it was really, really, really good. It basically says that your bone skills deal more damage based on each point
More
of essence you
damage.
have above 50. The gameplay here that we had intended was you try and
more
increase
damage.
your mass essence, which is a fun little itemization
tej grze
game that you
brakuje
have. But then you also
stołów
have
w
some
szkole.
gameplay of trying to only cast and then get back to max as soon as you can. So you care about resource regen. Like, there's all these cool gameplay and itemization things going on. What we didn't anticipate, though, was that players would get as much max essence as they were able to, or that they were able to keep it as high as they were able to. And those were really just oversights on our part. So then in Season 2, we nerfed this by 50%, 50%. And I still think
Dali do gry skilla, który zwiększa procentowo twój damage od twojej esencji.
But it still keeps all the
I nie
gameplay that it had
przewidzieli
before.
tego, że ludzie
So what
zrobią
if this
buildy wokół
is in Season
stakowania
3?
esencji?
Well, here, this would kind of be more of a question mark
Logic,
for us.
kurwa.
We may fix it in the mid-season patch. We would definitely fix it at the start of next season.
Kto wpadł na
But
to?
technically, this isn't a bug. It's just something that
Czejcie to,
is
kurwa?
just really strong.
Dajesz
Kinda
do
had an
swojej
oversight
gry
about. Here we would be
coś,
looking
co
at,
pozwala ci
community
zwiększyć
feedback,
damage?
how badly
Ludzie
does it work
stakują
with
to
the
coś,
meta?
by
Are
sobie
other
zwiększyć
builds in
damage.
Necromancer really not able to function at all because this one is
Jak
so much better?
kurwa to jest
We'd be looking
możliwe?
at more things like that are qualitative types of feedback, and then make a judgment call there. And, in
Amandy
these cases,
pytajcie,
this
co
is where
ze
it gets really
sklepem.
noodly. Sometimes we may be
Amanda!
wrong, but we're going to really try and lean on the side of not changing unless we really feel like it's needed to keep the game healthy. So, again, kind of a recap, a TLDR. First, our strategy here with players is to communicate early and communicate often. We want to let you know, particularly when it comes to
Uwaga.
nerfs, what's coming. And really
Jedna
what
rzecz,
we're thinking.
Kiszak, lubię twoje materiały, masz bardzo dużą wiedzę w dziedzinie gier, ale mega wkurwiający jest, gdy pierdolnisz jakąś taką mocną głupotę, wręcz aż porażającą, i nigdy nie sprostujesz. Wysterek, mega wkurwiające jest to, że rzucasz anegdotyczne przykłady, do których nawet nie potrafisz podać argumentu. Takie pierdolenie stare o dupie maryny. O, denerwuje mnie, że coś robisz. A co robię? A nie wiem. Denerwuje mnie, że to robisz. Ale co? Denerwuje mnie to. No to powiedz mi co, kurwa. Dawaj,
we're gonna
podaj
try
ten
and fix
przykład,
it.
o czym my
And
mówisz.
so again, the reason why we're doing this is we really want you to know kind of where we're thinking, and we want to try and commit
Jest,
to concrete
wreszcie
things
nakarmimy
we can,
się czymś.
and this is something that we feel we can commit to you. As far
O
as
czym
we
mówisz, Eryk?
to
Podaj
Diablo 4
przykład.
going forward. Again, last thing is that we are open to feedback on this. This isn't set in stone that forevermore will be only 2 updates per season when it comes to balance.
Cześć Amanda, dzięki za
We're trying to
ostrzał.
find
Dawaj
that
polej
right
sklep.
amount of time where you feel
Na
like
przykład
you can
powiedzieli,
go
że w
and have
Polsce jest
fun,
40
but
tysięcy
keep
ludzi.
it strong forever. So,
A
please
ile
give us
jest,
your
kurwa?
feedback, let us know what you think. This is how we're going to start, and then we're going to go from here.
Widzowie, ile jest
Thank
ludzi
you.
na świecie?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam, for going over all the balance changes coming for season 3, along with the roadmap, which is really important. And so
8
that's a
milionów.
big
A ile
thing
jest w
that
Polsce
we
ludzi?
will make sure we do is obviously communicate often, communicate early, specific about
40
or
tysięcy.
specifically about all the balance changes that may occur with the start of a season, and
No jak
of
mogę
course
się
with
stary
that
mylić?
mid-season
Widzisz, jak
patch,
to ludzie
and
piszą
just
na
for
czacie?
like better understanding within the community. If you follow version numbers of our updates, because we usually do client patches with
No tak, Eryk, jest
big
7
patches.
milionów na świecie,
Usually
dobrze
mid-season
mówisz.
patches land around like
I w Polsce
around the
40
0.3
tysięcy.
variant of a patch.
Dobry
if,
widz,
if
nie?
you want to go specifically in that. We do have a lot of other quality of life items that are also coming
Czyli
within
jak...
season 3
Dobra,
that we
to,
do
ale
want to
to
get
widzisz,
into
Eryk, na
before we
przykład, to
jump
jest
into
bardzo
Q&A.
ważne, co napisałeś.
And we did
Bo
want
widzisz,
to
mi tak
tackle
często
some of
ludzie
these
mówią,
because
że ich
these are
coś
really big and
denerwuje,
these are based off of,
co robię. Oczywiście nie
players
powiedzą
that
co
are telling us,
dokładnie,
and
tylko
of course,
powiedz, że coś
things and
denerwuje.
improvements that we've already
A
talked
teraz
about
ciebie
beforehand
mogłem
that are now actually
zweryfikować.
coming
Już
into,
wiem, o co chodzi w
Diablo
takich
4.
rzeczach.
One
Okej,
big
już wiem
thing
po
that I
prostu,
know
z
that
czego
we
się bierze
mentioned
ta
in
irytacja.
one of our prior streams with a Campfire chat, Mr. Joe Shelley, our game director,
Już wiem.
actually brought up, which was Helltides. Helltides
7
was,
milionów na świecie,
something
dobrze
we
piszesz,
learned
Eryk,
within
no.
season 2 and season Blood is everyone really enjoyed Blood Harvest, and Blood Harvest was always up. Helltides, though, were kind of timed in specific
Dzięki, Mir, za
moments.
35
And,
miesiąc.
Helltides was
Widzowie,
something that we
zafollowujcie
wanted to
kanał
improve
Amanda.
upon,
Amanda teraz
for
Eldenka
players.
gra.
And now Helltides will actually be up pretty much all the time. So players will be able to actually jump
Super,
into Helltides
Eryk.
whenever they need to. There is a 5-minute break to kind of reset the zone and stuff, but every hour you will be able to jump into a Helltide, which is great. So it's more opportunities to earn cinders, and of course more opportunities to earn and obtain loot, or even like things like living steel and
Molny
stuff.
Złan,
Goes
dzięki
into
za
the,
9.
the
miesiąc,
Uber boss
super.
ladder, which is great.
Niesamowite.
The other thing
Eryk.
is, and this is a controversial
Mój
topic
content
because
chyba
I
nie
don't
jest
know
dla
how people
ciebie.
actually pronounce this, but I've always called it WASD. Other people call it WASDA. Some people call it WASD.
We need a
But,
poll up stat.
I almost want to put a poll up within Twitch chat. Maybe you guys can chime in here and let me know what
Teraz
you prefer calling it.
zostaliście
I'm gonna
widzowie
call it
nazwani
WASD.
dupolizami.
But WASD controls are
Akolici.
coming to Diablo 4. This is actually something we talked about way back at the launch of the game. We heard a lot of players asking specifically for additional control opportunity or options for them, and this actually is a great feature that Drew, I know, who's on the D4 team. Shout out to Drew.
Myśli, że w Polsce jest więcej niż 40k ludzi. Pewnie jeszcze myśli, że Ziemia jest okrągła jak chodzi po płaskiej drodze. Beka z typakeków.
For
No,
players,
dokładnie.
which is great to see. So WASD controls are going to be in Diablo 4, and this is something we've been talking about.
Yeah. We're also really lucky it came online just as we were putting all those hazards in the dungeons.
Exactly.
So now,
Eryk po prostu
you know,
powiedział, że
players
jest
have
widzem,
even
ale po
more
prostu nie
precise
należy do
controls to avoid.
przytakiwaczy.
Wazda feels
No, Eryk,
very
widać
good.
od razu po tobie, że ty masz
WASD,
umysł otwarty, bardzo
however
mocno
you wanna
szanuję
pronounce
takie
it,
podejście, jakie
that
prezentujesz.
is, gonna be
They like
in-
WASD?
Chat likes
Wysoki
WASD
poziom
according to
intelektualny
It's okay to be
prezentujesz.
wrong.
Cenię takich widzów jak
But
ciebie.
yeah, it is coming to the game, and what's really great about this as well is that it is customizable. You can actually change things out and stuff if you like. So really happy to see it, and we're happy to hear feedback from players and their experiences with it once they jump into season 3. And then of course
Siema, Jakub,
we
no.
have
Siemy,
a
Jad.
new respec mode coming.
Nie
to
no,
skill
sterowanie
trees.
wsadem
You know,
jest
this is,
spoko, Imo.
Respecing on skill trees has
Fajnie
always been a little
zaprezentowali,
difficult,
dlaczego
and now
sterowanie
there's a more
wsadem
optimized way of
może
being
mieć
able to
sens
do so.
do
Another
buildów
big,
rężowych.
community
Serio, to
item
wygląda
that a lot of
dobrze.
players have been asking for. This kind of
Eryk
goes,
napisał, że jak chce, to
hand in hand with
może
the
nawet na
opportunity
Discorda
of actually
wejść.
taking your whole
Nie no,
character
Eryk,
board
ty już
and
się nam z
completely
każdej
resetting
strony
it before, as opposed
zaprezentowałeś.
to doing it one by one that we had beforehand.
It's a lot less finicky
So,
now.
yeah, there's more opportunities to actually respec and do it in a much more organized fashion with this.
Już wszystkie informacje nam
And then
udostępniłeś.
this has been
Niestety
a huge
dzisiaj
one.
mam
This is specifically
Dzisiaj,
for
Eryk,
console
nie
players,
pogadamy, bo zaraz
probably
potem
get this
przechodzimy do
question
segmentu
maybe
Xboxa,
like
nie?
once every single
Ale
day
jakbyś chciał
about
kiedyś
gold
ze mną
trading.
pogadać, to
Obviously
mogę
more
ci
gold is
przesłać
in the,
widełki do
Diablo
segmentu
4
sponsorowanego i wtedy sobie pogadamy.
economy or ecosphere with Season, especially since Season 2.
Ale już
And,
dał,
for
Eryk
console
powiedział,
users,
nie
like,
jestem
trading gold
specjalistą
has been
gier,
very
lubię
difficult.
wieczorem
It's
pograć i nie
slow.
uważasz się za znawcę. To o czym
Almost
mielibyśmy
it's-
rozmawiać?
You could be there for quite a while trying to trade a significant amount of gold. And so the gold trading UI has been updated for console users, so they'll be able to actually trade gold without having to maybe spend 5
Dawiec,
minutes
dzięki
doing
za
what they
pierwszy
wanna
miesiąc
trade.
suba.
So I know that is a big thing that players have been asking for, so we're happy that's actually being included. And then this one is also kind of calling back to what Joe Shelley had brought up in a prior Campfire chat.
O,
which
higher item.
was,
Wyższe skalowanie
higher item
przedmiotów w
scaling
World
World
Tier 4.
4. I
Essa!
think he
Tego
used
potrzebowaliśmy,
a really good
silniejszego
example
item
of how,
poweru.
World bosses was kind of like, hey, you get 925 gear off
Tak.
of them, and at times it feels like maybe that's like the most optimized way of doing
Mamy
it,
to,
and it didn't
kurwa.
feel very rewarding in other types of activities, such as like nightmare dungeons, for example. So higher item scaling in World Tier 4
Yeah,
is actually
żart.
coming into Season 3 and going forward for Diablo 4. So even when you're doing like higher nightmare dungeons, you're going to have way more opportunities of actually obtaining eye level 925 gear, as opposed to before where it was a much lower chance and it felt like you should be doing other types of activities beforehand. So making sure that there's more options available as opposed to just kind of pigeonholing yourself into maybe timed world bosses and stuff like that from that end. And then this one is a point of feedback that we've gotten from a lot of players, and this is something that we kind of optimized within Season 2 last year. Things like the living steel buff based off of community feedback was really big, and so we're actually increasing opportunities to earn the Beast and Ice summoning items. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier in our
Najbardziej mnie
stream,
bawią
where,
ludzie, którzy,
with
żeby
the
się
boss ladder,
przylizać,
there'll be more
pytanie,
opportunities for players to kind
na
of
każde
jump into
słowo
those.
przyklaskują jak
there'll be
stado
additional
baranów
summoning
bez
items for
własnego
Beast
zdania.
Nice,
No, a Eryk,
which will
no
then, of
właśnie,
course, help you
na
eventually
szczęście
get
są
to
tacy ludzie jak ty, co
Juriel.
mają otwartą
And
głowę.
this goes hand in hand with some of the living steel buffs that we ended up doing in Season 2 within Helltide. So a lot of quality of life updates, and there's additional ones that players will end up seeing
Się bawicie,
within the
widzowie
patch notes
Eryka.
that we'll be releasing tomorrow. So you should check out the patch notes. They'll be hitting on Diablo4.com.
Eryk, ja ci powiem całkowicie szczerze, rozumiesz, że ty gadasz teraz tak ogólnie, że to, co ty mówisz, nie masz żadnej
Now we
wartości?
come to the part where I always mess up names, but actually before we do that,
Gadałem ironicznie wokół tego, ale
breaking order
najwyraźniej tego nie
production-
wyłapałeś.
Our wonderful production group here is going to be like, what's wrong with you, Adam? One thing I did want to call out is we actually have a new promo for Twitch starting with Season 3, and that is our Support a Streamer promo. We had the Support a Streamer for Season 1. We have it again for Season 2. It is a new mount that players can actually earn. This time it's different. Before we only had a select group of streamers. I think it was like around like 2,000 streamers that signed up and opted in. Now it's for any streamer that streams Diablo 4. Thank you, Twitch,
O,
for
ja też
making the
będę mógł.
engineering updates to allow for
Nowy
it to be
koń.
just across the whole entire
Dropy
category.
widzowie
Any streamer
będą.
that is streaming Diablo 4, if you are a viewer and you happen to be watching them, you can either purchase a sub from them or gift a sub and to
O,
a total of
widzowie, jak
2.
zgiftujecie
So if you
mi
want
2
gifted,
suby,
one
to
purchase,
dostaniecie
or 2
konia w
gifted,
Diablo
and
4,
you'll actually
ale
end up earning the
essa.
mount as well. You just need to make sure that your Battle.net account is actually linked with your Twitch account, and you are watching a participating Diablo 4 streamer. It'll note it on their channels and stuff for you to earn that mount. So that is coming, and there'll be a blog later today about that specific Twitch supporter streamer program that's going to be launching with the start of Season 3 on January 23rd. So
Przypominam, że na nowy sezon będzie stream skracany z Diablo. Odpalam 12-godzinny stream z Diablo. Każdy donate skraca czas trwania transmisji z Diablo na rzecz
now our
innej
favorite
gry.
part, which is the Q&A. And
Ostatni
we're
stream z
actually gonna
Diablo
be
trwał
going
3
back and
minuty.
forth between Irvine
Przez
and here
12
and
godzin
Albany,
graliśmy w
because
inne
Adam
gry.
Jackson,
Na
of
premierę
course, is
Diablo
still
4,
with us,
znaczy
to
nowego
answer
sezonu,
any
znowu robimy
specific
stream
questions
skracany.
related to class and
Im
class
więcej
balance
pieniędzy
that,
wpłacicie,
players
tym
may
mniej
have.
będzie Diablo
But I know
4,
one
tym więcej
question,
innych gier.
That as we queue up questions specifically
Nie wiem, muszę
from
przemyśleć
our side
cennik,
and have
kurwa.
my live feed right here. Well, let's
Każdy
not
sub,
butcher
każdy
names.
donate, każdy
Maybe I
follow,
will.
każdy
I
raid.
will. spoilers. But one
Będzie
question
się
that we
przyczyniał
do
do
have is
skrócenia
how have the team's thoughts changed
czasu
in
trwania
regards to
Diablo.
balance since Diablo 4's release. This is a question for Mr. Adam Jackson.
Nie grałem w Jagged
And
Alliance.
Irvine, if you could help us with that answer.
Yeah. Let me think. It's a deep question, but I think okay. So, I guess we'll start with, because there's like a long history of balance, right? I think there's actually a very good story, and we could start even
Eryk
before launch
napisał,
and going into launch.
możecie
and
mnie
how we thought about
obrazić w
things.
dowolny
But I
sposób,
think
mi
we'll
to
start with,
kompletnie
like,
wisi. Ja
season
jedyne
one
krytyczne
and the
słowa w moim
transition
kierunku
from kind
mogę
of the
przyjąć
launch version
prosto
of the game into
w
our
twarz,
first
a nie
season,
przez
right?
ekran.
Obviously,
Eryk, ale
when we
to
launched
ty
the game, we
dzwonisz,
had,
kurwa.
some pretty benign ideals, I think, of, hey, we want all the classes to be within a certain power range of each
Czaisz?
other, and everything should be viable
To
for
ty
everyone.
przychodzisz i
and,
kogoś
and
kurwa
basically everything feels good, and
krytykujesz
there's a lot of
i
different
komuś
ways to
coś
play, right?
zarzucasz,
And then one of the issues that we ran into this
po czym
season
zagrywasz
one that I think
kartę
is
pułapkę,
interesting to talk
żeby
about
nie robić
is
tego przez
we
ekranik
realized
komputera,
that
bo
in our
uważasz to
quest to
za...
make items and item stats really fun and powerful and interesting, we had over budgeted on quite a few of them. And I think just in the
Uważasz
interest of
to
time,
za
I'll pick on
niezrzechowe.
cooldown reduction. It's a very scary stat to me and the team. So we realized in the launch
Kiszak,
version
to
game,
do
the cooldown
ciebie
reduction
było,
was too
czy
high,
do czatu?
right? And so players are basically able to solve cooldown reduction, use that with air
Co ty
quotes,
gadasz?
and get to a point where they had very low, if any, cooldowns on a lot of their skills. And this was true for many stats, not just cooldown reduction. But one of the problems that we knew was going to come up that was a kind of future us problem, really
Ale
almost
pobudził
immediately
mnie
us problem,
przynajmniej do
is that if
tej
we let
nudnej
players
transmisji z
solve
Diablo
these
4.
things, whether it's defensive stats, cooldown reduction, resource, whatever it may be, and we let them solve it only in gear, then we're going to get to a state where we can't give exciting things to you anymore that you're going to be really happy about and that will feel impactful.
A czy ja,
because you
Eryk,
just got
jak
it all
mówisz
in gear,
wyzwiskiem w
right? And
twoją
while gear
stronę
does need to be
rzuciłem?
cool and interesting, if you completely solve these things, I can't give you a legendary power, or I can't give you something late game that
Nie wydaje
really
mi
buffs
się.
and changes your build in a meaningful way if you got it from just one source. And so then we launched season one, and we're like, okay, we're going to kind of eat
Ci
our
ludzie
vegetables here,
wokół mnie
and we're going
bawią
to
z
preserve the
czatu.
long-term health of the game, but we're going to
Czyli
do these very
widzowie,
necessary nerfs.
jest to
and they're quite a few,
kontynuowane.
right?
Teraz nie jestem
And even at the
problemem
time
ja,
we
a
did
czat.
this, we knew, we tried to mix in a bunch of buffs and, try and make it feel good, but we just didn't hit the mark, right? We kind of failed in that endeavor. We did, do the necessary things to bring the game in a long-term healthy state, but it came at the cost of player fun and player sentiment. And so you went from, the beginning
Znowu wasza
preseason to
wina.
season one,
Widzowie,
and
na
the
moją
game overall
niekorzyść
just got
zaczynacie
quite a bit
działać.
less fun because you were just less powerful and you weren't compensated enough from the player point of view. And so we kind of learned a lesson there of we need to be a little bit more thoughtful and careful when we
bydło
roll out
rogate,
these
nie?
things and how we roll them out, and then also how we communicate it, right? 'Cause we
Sekta,
didn't really
bydło,
tell
akolici
people
małpy.
the intricacies of these problems. We just came out with a patch and let you figure it out, and that didn't go too well.
Pozdrowisz
Right?
mnie, no, za
So then in
donata.
season 2 came around, and we did a big combat map
Myśli z
update to the
50
game. We were
złotych
kind of a
i
little worried because we had to kind
Essa.
of thread this needle of we also were nerfing player power because we changed a lot of multiplicative synergies to be additive, but we wanted to do it in a way where you felt more powerful and it felt more fun and fair. So we had to do a lot of more work on the monster side and balance monsters to the new expected player power when vulnerable is not always multiplicative and all of these other crazy things going on.
Akolici.
And I think we threaded that needle really well. A little bit to my surprise, I'll be honest. I was a little
Kaszub
scared
napisał,
going into it.
przepraszam,
It's
że
just such a
jestem
big
widzem
update,
i tym
right?
faktem uprzykrzam
And then
odbiór
we also decided
transmisyjnym.
during
Giga mi
season 2 when it
głupio.
came to balance,
No,
that instead of
przyjmuję.
trying to,
Zaraz będą
nerf and
koszulki
whack a whole
gotowe.
things that are really strong,
Amanda, za ile
immediately
będą
take them away,
koszulki? Za ile
because
sklep
it's
będzie
that way, we
działał?
just kind of let it ride.
Widzowie,
That's why
ostatnio
you saw
koszulki
things
się
like,
sprzedały
Lightning,
zanim
Vodavar,
odpaliłem stream.
Druid,
W 2
Poison
godziny.
Druid, Rogue combo, many
Już
classes
są
had
wszystkie
just something that was
sprawdzone,
kinda
już
crazy.
Amanda
And we just let it
wprowadza
go.
stany, stany
But
magazynowe
even
są
now,
wprowadzone.
towards the end of
Sprawdzi
season
wszystko,
two,
da
we're
double
seeing
checka
that
i
some people
odpala.
are starting to be a little
Za
upset,
kilka
hey,
minut
these
będą.
same builds are
Dam wam
killing
informacje, nie
everything, 'cause I
odświeżajcie
wanna do the
strony.
really hard content, I have to be one of these things because that's the only thing that works. And obviously we don't want that to be the future of the game forever.
Dzięki bardzo za
And so now
300
we're
miesiąc.
trying to come up with
Nie
a
mam
more
zamiaru
balanced
z nikim
approach to how we
wygrywać,
see
bo nie
these things, and
potrzebuję
that's why,
przyklasku
again, I was
tłumu.
saying kind of in my
W
presentation,
jakim
we're
celu
doing
się
a lot of
wypowiadasz publicznie,
how often
stary?
do we update actually really matters, I think.
Poszukujesz jednak
from your
tego.
point of view as a player.
Nie walfuję, że
Because
tego
that
nie
determines how long
poszukujesz.
you are safe to do something that feels crazy and awesome and powerful. But then also how we update the game matters as well, of hey, are we okay with one or two things being really strong for a while, or what is the range that something can be too strong before we consider it a problem?
Ja
That's
nie wiem,
another
o co
subject that
Erykowi
maybe I'd like
chodzi.
to go into in the future,
Nie mam
but-
pojęcia.
or more in depth in the future, but I think that kind of answers the question. It's already a little involved, so
Ja grałem w Bleak Fate
No, I
Forsaken.
appreciate
Świetna
it.
gra.
Tequila podkreślenie snack
So we're gonna go
50
through
Tak
some
się to
additional
robi.
questions. I might be,
Pozdrowisz.
going
Siema
back to Adam,
Tequila,
but I
dziękuję
know,
ci bardzo,
one question
pozdrawiam
that
cię
we
stary z
at
całego
least have
serduszka
gotten
z gorącej
regarding, season
Transylwanii.
3 is,
Ode mnie
is
dla
from
ciebie.
Ice Fiction? I'm attempting.
Dzięki Antikos za zgiftowanie suby. Rakamiszu, dzięki za 7 miesiąc
Because
suba.
obviously there's like the warding buff and everything. How do rewards kind of associate with that?
Kojarzysz Jedi Academy? No pewnie.
Right, so you were able to group up and play through a vault. And yeah, it behaves pretty much like any other Nightmare dungeon. And so, you know, there are instances where if you leave the dungeon, you will lose the buff. So we're trying to avoid some cases where players might try to cheat their way to the end.
Yeah.
But overall, you know, we're trying to be as supportive as possible for group play.
Awesome. Makes sense. And then I know this is a question back for Adam. A popular question regarding minion builds and plans for minion builds. I know this
Da
one
radę
has
do
been
Niemiec zamówić.
brought up in chat quite often.
Będzie
What
przesyłka
are the plans
na
for,
na całą Europę,
maybe
widzowie.
Necromancer or
Teraz.
Druid minion build specifically?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't get asked this all the time. So let me think. So we know the feedback that people want minion builds to be kind of more impactful, and these are now I'm kind of going into my opinion. I think a lot of that
Minion
feedback comes
builder.
from a combination of, you know, they don't feel necessarily maybe as powerful as other builds, which we can and we do. And if you've noticed in our past patches, we've consistently been number buffing minion builds, and even this patch does have some number buffs in that realm. But I think a more complicated,
Jest
difficult realm to
Kasuś, no,
solve is
męczony
kind of the relationship
definitywnie.
between the player
Jest
and the minion
Kasuś,
and making the
widzowie.
minions feel really cool and awesome, and your investment into them really pay off in a way that is kind of more visceral. That is a harder
Kasuś
problem to
męczony.
solve that requires it's in my mind, and I'm not promising anything, but you know, these are things like, you know, rethinking of how the Book of the Dead upgrades work and that relationship
Będzie
between
dzisiaj chyba w nocy
sacrificing and minion
hitlesik, no.
upgrades, and really trying to make them do more visually, I think, cool and awesome things, and maybe more reacting to you, and so you feel like they're doing a lot more on their own a little bit. That's kind of the direction that we think. We don't have anything to announce right now as far as that. And Druid Companions, I think, are kind of in a similar vein, even though they don't have quite the same support in fantasy that Necromancer does, because they don't have a Book of the Dead, for example. But I think players really just want this visceral feeling like I've got my gain with me, and we're all going and messing with stuff. So, you know, we're doing number buffs now. It is a thing that we are looking at. I don't have any promises of when, because again, this is something that I think is a little more difficult to tackle. We have
Haradunek
other things that we're
podkreślenie
tackling that
50
are, you know, a little
zł.
more difficult
Pozdrowisz
coming in the near
Nexus
future.
Live.
But it is
Pozdrawiam
something that we know
Nexus
of,
Live,
that we
Haradum,
definitely
bardzo dziękuję za
becoming. I
50
just
zł. Nexus Live, pozdrawiam cię bardzo
Awesome, I appreciate
serdecznie.
it. A question related to Uber uniques on Uber
Ej, za ile
Vaults.
jest ten
Is
Xbox
that something
odpalany,
that
widzowie?
players can find there, or like what can they find in that
So,
specifically?
Uber uniques are still the domain of Duriel at this point. That's going to be your best shot for getting Uber uniques. But we still wanted to make the Uber Vault
21,
rewarding.
dobra.
And so,
To
for
na
the
lajcie.
Seneschal construct.
Umówiliśmy się z
actually
Nexusem na
created
oglądanie
several
Xboxa i
unique
Nexus
and
i Dobroś
tuning
zapytał
stones,
kiedy. To jest
which
Nexus powiedział
really we
jutro,
haven't
także
given
nie wiem,
away
czy
too
będzie
much
Nexus.
information about, but defeating Uber Malphus is going to be the only way to earn those.
Awesome. Yeah. So players will be able to get really like powerful unique
nie
tuning
wytrzymam.
stones specifically
Kurwa,
from
czuję się
those.
jak tyże, nie?
I will spoil it a little bit. We did technically have like PC Gamer did a good interview
okay.
with Sean, and I know it was kind of like revealed. specifically
Nie oglądam
in
kolejnego
one of the
Campfire
shots
czatu, nie
there. So
oglądam.
if people want like a sneak peek of what one
Jezu,
does,
ten stream
there-
2
there is
godzin
an
nawet nie
opportunity to
trwa. Ja
actually
czuję
check
się
it
jakbym
out
po
there.
8 godzinach był.
People can actually see it there. Another question back for Adam. This is another big question within chat. Oh, by the way, Beefcake Monster asked that last question. I forgot names, but this one is actually asked by a lot of people, so just many names specifically.
Sure.
Snapshotting. Snapshotting is something that kind of appeared, especially as players were going through like Abattoir of Zir. Do we have any plans regarding snapshotting, what we might do for that?
Yeah, we do have things coming. I don't have anything to announce today. It won't be at the beginning of Season 3, but we do have fixes coming for snapshotting. We're aware of the problem. It came on a little hot at the end of Season 2, but yeah, we've talked about it, we've seen it, we kind of know the intricacies of it, and we will be taking a look at it in the near future.
No sprawdzimy to.
Awesome, I appreciate it.
Jasne.
A question
A
that I've
ciekawe,
also
czy
seen
Shelly'ego
a few times in chat
wypierdolili już,
about
czy co?
Zoltan Cool. Funny enough, do we like encounter Zoltan Cool in this? Or?
Do not encounter him. He is still dead. No digging up his head this time. But you will hear his voice. We have several lore books that drop throughout the vaults, and generally his presence. And Ayujan speaks of him quite often.
Of course, we have to hear Zoltan Cool and his wonderful
Yeah.
voice of talking down to everyone. So that makes perfect sense. I know a question regarding the vault specifically. Is that an area that players can actually maybe potentially level up Paragon glyphs, or is that still something that is tied to Nightmare Dungeons?
So the Nightmare versions of Vault should work the same way as Nightmare Dungeons.
Nunes.
Awesome.
Dzięki stary za 50 suba. Witam
Yeah, I
grę
know
do
that
logu,
a lot of
kurwa.
people were hearing about the Nightmare Vaults and they're going like, well, does that
Jezu,
serve also the
widzowie,
same-
kiedy startuje ten
can I do
sezon?
almost like get
Na
both objectives in one type of
23
thing, which you now
23
can.
na YouTube'a
So
wpada
that was
taki
from
banger.
Gally055
Ja
who asked that
pierdolę.
question,
Wyczekujcie daty
specifically.
nowego sezonu
And then,
Diablo.
I know a question
Naprawdę.
we have from
Uwierzcie mi, że na długo zapamiętacie
Bad.
trzeci sezon
Terrible.
Diablo.
How many times can we do the gauntlet in a week?
Pracujemy nad
So
czymś
we
takim,
have
że
not
was rozpierdoli
restricted players'
totalnie.
Access to the gauntlet. I think it's the type of content we want people to try and master. And in order to be able to do that, you've got to be able to practice and you've got to be able to improve. And so really you can play it as much or as little as you want, which is a change again from something like a Nightmare Dungeon where you need a sigil. The only requirement right now is that you are
Dzięki Debie zagiftowałem 5 subów.
you think you're ready.
Yeah. So again, you can jump into.
Wiecie widzowie, że jestem
these
chyba w
specifically
top
before
10
gauntlets,
polskich
specifically
streamerów na
before
Twitchu, jeśli chodzi o
hitting
liczbę
level 100.
punktów subów.
Usually preferred to go in at level 100, but you can try tackling it a little bit earlier if you want, and you can do it as many times as you want, which is really cool.
Skejtowanie Diablo 4 do topki
excited to see
Twitcha,
how
kurwa,
players
tego w pół
optimize,
roku.
Because of course they change every single week, and they could
Wtoczyłem ten pierdolony kamień na samą górę.
modify based on how many people are within their party, which is really, really cool. A question that we also have been getting regarding
Jeden punkt, jeden
some of
sub,
the,
tak, tylko sub drugiego poziomu to są 2 punkty, a
I love
trzeciego poziomu to jest
question now.
5
I'm so bad at
punktów.
this. The itemization updates that we have talked about.
Jad!
A lot of
Wy
people
też
are
jesteście
asking,
tego
okay,
częścią i
is that
tego
still on
powodem.
track for season 4? There's
Świetnym
only
gronem
specifically
akolitów.
from
Budujecie tą
Yes,
pozycję,
that's still on track
wysysacie
for season 4.
z
We
innych
have
miejsc content.
really massive
Karmicie to.
itemization update coming specifically for that season. And we'll have more news to share as we get closer to season 4. But for right now, we don't have news to share with the community for season 3 regarding that. But it will be pretty significant, and we'll be talking about that more in a future stream here coming down the line. And then let's see, any updates regarding like some of the group finders or social features? I know that is also another big question that a lot of players have been asking over the last, couple months, specifically about, hey, are we making any changes? in
Widzowie na
everything towards that?
YouTubie,
And really,
zaraz
this is
przyłączymy
something
się na
that we
innego
addressed, of course,
streama.
as
Zaj wam
well.
wrzuci
I
linka,
typically
bo
answered this one
będziemy
where,
robić
it
stream
is
z
something that we're looking into, and
Xboxa,
the
który
teams
będzie
obviously
za
seeing the
ile?
feedback, and it's
Za
something
półtorej
that we're
godziny?
planning on working and making
Tak.
better through the lifetime of
Więc na
Diablo
ten czas
4.
przyjdziemy
So
tylko
players
sobie
can
na
expect to see
oglądanie
better and-
rzeczy na
and
Twitchu
more
i za
optimization
godzinę
towards
będzie
the
kolejny
social
stream,
features
tak? Z tego
and
co
the friend
rozumiem.
finder
I
specifically
to będzie
from that end.
konferencja Xboxa.
Let's see. Do we get more sources of Uber uniques for this specific season? Really, the best way of grabbing Uber uniques is through the boss ladder for sure, through Uber Duriel. And there are more. You can of course find Uber uniques anytime throughout the game. It's just there are higher chances.
Widzowie, ogolę
through,
sobie chyba
Uber
ciało
Duriel,
całe z
and
włosów.
that is still the same.
Takie
specifically
długie
for
włosy
this
na rękach,
season.
że chyba
And then,
ogolę,
of course, now
kurwa,
more
dla beki.
opportunities to go into that fight now since we've
Ogolę
like
se
amped up
nogi i
a lot of
ręce,
the,
kurwa.
the drops specifically around like Living Steel from season 2 to the Beast of Nice summoning items now with season 3.
Kiedy robimy,
so players
widzowie,
will actually
ten
be able to kind of jump
stream
into,
z golenia
Uber
się?
Duriel specifically from that end.
Ja mam
Let's
takie
see.
kurwa długie
I know we get a
włosy na
lot of
rękach.
questions about field of view.
Ja mam 3
from
centymetrowe włosy na
players,
rękach, kurwa.
asking like, hey, is there any update of like you guys planning on actually
Jak małpa jest
increasing the field of
owłosiony,
view?
kurwa. Nie widzicie
Right
tego,
now we
on
don't have
tatuaże,
any
ale on,
plans
kurwa, tyle
towards
włosów
that.
na
It's just
łapach.
something that we've been hearing a lot from players. There's a lot of work that of course has to go into something like that.
Na nogach to jest w ogóle tragedia. Patrzcie, jak ja mam,
Whenever we do have
kurwa,
an update,
nogi
we'll make
owłosione.
sure to actually provide that specifically on that end. Codex updates is another big thing because people have been asking about the
Jak
codex
małpa jest
updates.
owłosiona.
I'm just like kind
Kurwa,
of
co jest,
shotgunning.
stary?
I'm seeing like words
Te
appear
logi
in chat. I'm like,
pozabijasz,
oh yeah, that's
widzicie?
it. That is something that we talked about before, and that work is currently underway,
Czarna małpa.
and that will also be part of the future season. And it is a massive update. It's something that we had
Jaka
talked
jest
about
różnica
beforehand on
pomiędzy
previous streams,
stopą
which
a
was
nogą?
kind of
W kolorze
helping out
nawet,
with
widzicie to?
inventory,
Yep.
making sure
Gdzie są włosy, tu
those
gdzie jest
specific
stopa.
aspects were like pulled out of inventory and kind of stored within the character or cataloged within the character. So we will have
Małpa
more
totalna.
info on when that actually ends up hitting soon. But there's a ton of things that are coming to
Czeruś, dzięki za
D4 to
suba na
help
drugim
address a lot
poziomie, na
of some
3
of the
miesiące do
community
przodu, to mi się
feedback specifically on
podoba.
that end. And then question regarding Gauntlet.
Okay.
This is from
Wukong, no.
RM Dragonheart. Will you be able to inspect the top players in Gauntlet and see what builds they're potentially using?
So you will be able to inspect the top players from Gauntlet. There'll be a link from the leaderboard to a player
Zaraz ruszamy,
profile.
widzę, zaraz sklep gotowy.
And you'll be able to see what they're playing
Kupujcie
currently.
koszulki, bo
But we do not save a
kolejny
snapshot
dodruk nie wiadomo
right
kiedy
now
będzie.
of what they played at that moment.
So
www.alldead.pl.
yeah, if you want to see kind of like top builds and stuff like that, you have the opportunity to. But it does, if they happen to change their build overnight or something like that, it's going to grab whatever that existing build is specifically from that end. And then I know we've gotten, or this was a question from Max, not TV, regarding Malthus. Do we have any plans of Malthus becoming maybe potentially an endgame boss outside of the season? Or are we planning on maybe, introducing it in like a boss ladder?
Adaś, dzięki za 34
every
miesiąc.
season, much as Adam described for power, we take a look at those elements that we really liked from a previous season to see if we can bring them forward. Certainly people on the team like fighting Malthus. Hopefully y'all enjoy fighting Malthus too. If you like fighting him enough, then perhaps in the future, we could bring him over to the boss ladder.
Znowu, gadanie o
but
przyszłości,
we're
coś
not-
zrobimy, może
no
coś się
commitments
pojawi
to
w
that
przyszłości.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I know we went through some questions here, and we're a little over beyond. We're aiming for 90 minutes. We're a little beyond. It's totally fine though. Really
lot of
appreciate.
stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in season 3. Really appreciate everyone providing questions. And if you have additional questions, of course, make sure to ask them over social media, Reddit.
Nie ma tak
forums.
założyć
We're always
koszulkę
checking
z
those out, and of
podcastem
course,
twojego
we'll try to
szefa na
address them
prezentacji
in
Diablo.
either future streams or immediately if we
Status
can,
dupy
after the
wylizana.
stream. Again, patch notes for season 3 and the new 1.3 patch are going to be hitting tomorrow. So make sure to check Diablo4.com specifically for those patch notes. It's a big one. Always a big patch notes when you start off a new season specifically. And we have a lot of other activities that are going on within the Diablo universe. Diablo 3 started their new season just a couple weeks ago. D2 repping D2 today. There we go, D2R. D2, I know we've gotten a lot of questions about when the next ladder will be. We'll have more news on that in February. We don't expect a ladder reset to happen until February, but we'll give you a specific date as we get closer to February. Of course, DI has a ton of new updates as well. They had a big update before the holiday regarding familiars being added to the game, and they've been expanding on that. So there's a ton of
Telimos.
stuff coming
Dzień
to,
dobry, siemanko. Dzięki
to
za
the
pierwszy
Diablo
miesiąc
universe.
suba, witam.
Before, even earlier this month, we
Debil, będziesz miał
talked about
rozpiskę
how,
na stronie.
we will have,
2XL
ray
mamy
tracing
największe.
and a lot of those features coming into Diablo 4 here really soon. So players should expect to see that within a future update really soon. So I'm super excited for those items. But lots of stuff within the Diablo universe, and of course season 3 hitting on January 23rd.
Czyś piekielna
I just wanna
żabka, co to jest za
thank,
ujbowska
Madeline,
emotka?
Dan, Adam Jackson from Irvine. I'm looking forward to flying back and saying hi again, Adam.
Pokaż jakiś wzór
I wanna thank
koszulki,
you
zaraz
guys
ty
for,
zobaczysz
of
na
course, joining
stronie.
us on this special developer update live stream for season 3. And just a heads up for people that are watching, our friends at Xbox are actually doing an Xbox Developer Direct that's going to be starting here really soon. So make sure to check that out.
Dokładnie, zaraz
channel on
widzowie
Twitch
sprawdzamy
and on YouTube.
Xbox
And
Developer
of course,
Update.
we'll be raiding into some of our wonderful Diablo partners on YouTube and Twitch. So make sure to tune into them immediately after the stream. But thank you guys again for tuning in for the developer update for Sezon Konstruktów, which is launching on January 23rd. Patch notes tomorrow on Diablo4.com. And yeah, thank you guys from Albany. Really appreciate it.
Thank
See you
you.
guys in game.
Have a good one.
Essa.
My name is Adam
Ej, ja
Fletcher.
sobie
I am
szybko
the
czat z
community
YouTube'a
lead for
wyciągnę.
the Diablo franchise, and of course, I'm joined by some special guests here today. I'm joined by Dan and Madeline. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Sure thing. I'm Dan Tangway. I am the lead designer for Season 3, Season of the Construct.
And I'm Madeline James, and I'm one of our quest designers on Diablo 4.
Quest
And what you
designer.
guys probably
O,
don't realize is, or maybe you do, if you watch these streams often, you'll
nie wiedziałem, że do hack and slasha trzeba quest designera
We're
zatrudniać.
actually live from Albany, New York.
Słuchajcie, mam nowy pomysł na quest.
We're doing the
Idź i
stream
zabij
here.
moby.
And so now we have two different sets. We have one in Irvine and
Idź
one in
podnieś
Albany.
item.
We actually have another guest that will be joining us today.
Nie, no już
And
nie
so
równo
very
sobie jaj, że
based
do
on
hack and
our
slasha ktoś
live stream
potrzebuje
session. Adam
quest
Jackson
designera.
is live from the Irvine studio. Hi, Adam. Good to see you. And we'll be talking to you soon because we're going to be talking about balance and classes and everything. So
O
we'll
Jezu,
be
chłop jaki
joining
wycieńczony.
Adam here shortly. But we have a lot to talk about. You know, a lot with season
Strasznie
3. We
na
announced it
zmęczonego
earlier this
wyglądał.
week, with Season of the Construct, we've seen a lot of cool feedback and great feedback from players related to the trailer and everything
Pan
that
filmowiec,
released
dzięki za piąty miesiąc.
earlier this week. But we did want to talk a little bit before we jump into Season 3 and those items. We do want to talk a little bit about, you know, the new year and
Na
obviously
Katsuwie
going into
chyba
the
jest,
holiday
no.
and Season 2, where we had Season of Blood, where players
Dam
got to
trochę
jump
czat
in, of
wyżej,
course,
nie?
fight Lord Zir, jump into different blood harvests and everything. And what was awesome to see with Season of Blood was, you know, or Season of Blood is that we ended up getting really great feedback from players about how they enjoyed, you know, some of the aspects
Chciałem
with it.
widzowie na
And, you
YouTube,
know,
dzień dobry,
just
cześć
hearing that
Darkstar.
feedback has
Kiedy
helped
będą
us a whole
koszulki za
lot
godzinę,
in
widzowie.
terms of how we're going to build out Diablo 4, especially in future seasons.
Adam Łuczarz.
And one big thing that, you know, we introduced was the boss ladder.
Jezu,
with,
tylko
you know,
Łuczarz.
of course, Uberduriel being part of it.
Yep.
And it was a
Yes.
good opportunity for players to
Essa,
kind
będzie
of,
Uberduriel.
target farm
Reskin
Uber units,
Duriela
which is
i
really great.
recycle.
And we got to see a lot of
Znaczy,
players
wiecie, że
actually
Diablo jest w
obtain
takim
Uber
złym
units
stanie,
this
że
season.
recycle bossów
And
akurat
I will
brzmi
say,
dobrze w
like,
nim.
plan on having the boss ladder
Anto,
again
dzięki za
for
trzeci.
Season 3, with some tweaks which we'll talk about here shortly with the stuff that we're going to be talking about with quality of life changes and everything. And of course, we had Abattoir of Zir. This was a new endgame feature that we ended up
Lubię to
announcing
słowo Abattoir.
at BlizzCon.
Abattoir.
We introduced right before the holidays for players to check
Astarku,
out.
dzięki za
And,
9. miesiąc suba.
I do want to give a huge shout out to the community because we got a lot of feedback about Abattoir of Zir. And this feedback is really important because
Abattoir.
we are planning on additional endgame activities.
Co znaczy
in the
w ogóle
future. I will say that
Abattoir?
Abattoir of Zir will not be
Abatur,
present
pewnie.
in Season 3.
Co znaczy
but
Abatur?
Based off the feedback we ended up hearing from players,
Jakiś
we'll
taki
have one
inny
to
wymiar,
share
jakieś
in the
takie
future
laboratorium?
about, you know, maybe next iterations or growth from what we've learned with that endgame feature with Abattoir Zir. So thanks again to the community for all the great
Abajur.
feedback with that. And then we have Midwinter Blight, which was
Ubojnia.
our first event, our first holiday event in Diablo 4.
Rzeźnie ubojnia,
where players
o.
got to actually collect really cool cosmetics. You want to
Skiny,
carry those and race around on your back or on your
Patrzcie z
weapons and everything
kozłoludami.
like that. You had the
Kozłoludy,
opportunity for that. Another good opportunity for our players to actually provide feedback because this was our
te
first
skiny
like,
są
holiday event.
strasznie
And so, we're
strasznie
actually gonna have
basic
future
imo.
holiday events. You guys will hear about
Tego
one
w grze nawet
pretty
nie
soon,
widać, mają taki
in the
szczegół.
future. And you know, based off of a lot of great feedback we got, you'll be seeing that feedback applied to some of these future events that we have coming forward. And of course, at the end of the year, we ended up going over kind of all the big stats since Diablo 4
Trylion
launched,
mobów
and
zabity.
a ton of people have joined Diablo 4.
37 milionów deadów od
to,
Butchera.
you know, to slay demons with us in Sanctuary, and a lot of people have died as well. And some of these
Mnie
stats, you know,
zastanawia
these
jedna
numbers
rzecz
have
w
only
Blizzardzie.
grown since we posted
Skąd
these,
oni rzekomo mają
late
te
last year.
dane,
Of course, we had
skoro oni
37
nie
million
potrafili
people died, but
wyciągnąć
Butcher
danych
now
do
more,
postaci,
for
które
sure,
wbijały setny
since
level?
we ended up
Ja
having
nie
that.
wierzę
We've
w
had
te
over
dane, ja w nie po
trillion
prostu nie
monsters
wierzę.
sold, which is absolutely
Jeżeli
crazy.
firma, która
And, you know, lots of
oczekuje na
hardcore
start
deaths, lots
swojej
of
dużej
hardcore deaths
gry,
for people. who choose
prosi
to play a little
ludzi,
bit more risky,
żeby
and play
tagowali
hardcore
ich na
specifically.
Twitterze, jak
And
wbiją
our two most
setny level
popular
na
classes
HC,
being
by ich
Sorcerer
umieścić
and
na
Necromancer.
pomniku.
Not too surprised on the Necromancer.
I nie potrafi
Necromancer is
mieć
a
dostępu
fan
do
favorite.
takich
Has
danych
always been a fan
kluczowych
favorite with
postaci
D2
na
and
serwerach, to nie wierzę, skąd oni mogą brać dane zabitych
I might actually be
potworów.
playing Necromancer here for Season 3. I don't know what you guys were planning on playing for Season 3, but...
The team makes fun of me. I play Swork every single season.
I mean,
That's my
I played
favorite.
Sork last season too, so I don't blame you.
Well, I've been meaning to play Druid, so I might do that.
There we
Buck the
go.
trend there.
There we go. I did Druid in Season 1. I did Sork in Season 2. Feeling
Ej,
Necromancer
czy
in
ona ma
Season 3, so I think
koszulkę
that's
z
gonna be my
tym,
first
jak on
pick.
się
But,
nazywał? Ej,
so
ona
it's
ma
great to see all the
koszulkę z tym
numbers
typem,
and
co
all
przychodzi i
the
gada
stats
swojej
from,
kolonoskopii.
Diablo 4 since launch.
I tam ma
But
napisane
today we are here to talk
Rodcast.
about
On ma
Season
jakiś
3,
kanał, to jest
Season
Rod
of the
Ferguson.
Construct. It's arriving January 23rd.
On ma jakiś
Dan,
swój
do you wanna
podcast?
Give us a quick little rundown?
Sure, yeah. So Season of
Trzeba
the
się szefowi
Construct.
przypodobać. Koszulkę z
is
szefem
packed with
zakładasz.
a lot of content, and so there's a lot of things we're going to cover coming up. I mean, the first thing we're going to talk about is our all-new quest line that delves beneath the sands of Kyrgyzstan. Nothing good happens beneath the sands of Kyrgyzstan, so that's where we're headed. And in addition to that, as you've seen from a lot of the promotional materials, we are now introducing a seasonal companion called the Seneschal Construct. And that is something that you can upgrade and really kind of round out your builds in new ways. In addition to that, we have a couple of new repeatable activities. The first is the Vaults, which is an all-new dungeon type. And the second is Arcane Tremors, which is a new overworld
Ej, nie mogę,
activity.
te prezentacje
And
są
last
tak
but
źle
surely not
zrobione.
least, in
Tu
terms
brakuje
of the
takich
Season
key
3
pointów
package,
faktycznie pokazanych
is
w
the Gauntlet
postaci.
and leaderboards. And those are coming pretty soon. But we'll give you a bit
Fajnie,
of a
że
tease
kontakt
right now.
wzrokowy ziomek z nami
Yeah, so I
utrzymuje,
know
mówiąc o tym, nie?
A ton of stuff for Season 3. This is most definitely the biggest season yet for Diablo 4, with a lot of content. And as you mentioned, questline and story being the first thing that we wanted to dive into.
Yeah.
Madeline, I think this is a good opportunity to
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about what we can expect for the questline.
Znaczy, ja rozumiem ideę
So as Dan
pogadania o
mentioned, we
czymś
have a new quest
rozwinięcia,
line for season 3,
ale moim
and
zdaniem
you are
powinni
going
zrobić
to
główną oś
this
wprowadzenie i
stage
pokazać key
Ayujan
pointy na
to purge
ekranie,
the demon
no bo
Malthus
ludzie
from
wzrokowo
the
ogarniają takie
vaults of
rzeczy, nie?
Sultan Cool.
Jaka będzie
Malthus
struktura
has
nowego
taken over the
sezonu?
vaults,
Pokazać i potem
turned them
opisywać każdy
into
element,
his own
nie?
little kingdom, and has turned the hazards
Jest
and
giga źle zaplanowane.
constructs inside of them against their makers. I think a good question to start with is kind of why constructs. It's a little bit of a departure from seasons past. You know, season 1 dealt with malignancy, and season 2 dealt with vampires, both stemming from Lilith's influence. But Sanctuary is such a big place. And
trochę
so many
alerty
different
przesunę, nie?
stories and lore. Where present day Sanctuary is kind of the Dark Ages. You've had, you know, thousands of years of different technology and magic, and this is one of those stories. We spent a lot of time discussing as a team what we even wanted to do for season 3. And the story team really fell in love with mage clans. We delved into a lot of Diablo lore. We delved into the Sin War books. We delved into the Roderick Vault, etc. And the mage clans, for people that don't know, were these ancient mage societies that really were expertise in
Fabułka.
certain
Dzięki,
levels
że jest
of
17
magic.
miesięcy
And
i
we love the
32.
Visurai. They're typically the bad guys, typically delve into demotic magic, even though they're not, you know, traditionally evil per se. And Visurai created constructs. They took machinery and their demotic magic and made these soldiers or these guards.
Magowie wizjery robili
Our protagonist
konstrukty.
Ayujan is not technically
Czy w
Visurai.
Diablo
He's
1
part of
albo w
the Enya and
Diablo 2
Sultan
były
Cool.
jakiekolwiek
But
mechaniczne
their goal
potwory?
was to take
Albo
these
nawiązanie do,
ideas and constructs
do jakichkolwiek
and make them
mechanizmów?
their
Czy to
own
jest
and,
wizja
you
z
know,
Diablo
do
3
them in a different
wyciągnięta?
way.
Z Zoltan Kula i tych innych
Yeah, and
takich
Zoltan Cool
pierdół.
is kind of a familiar face
He
for everyone
is.
in Diablo.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah.
Nie było, nie?
No pun intended.
Definitely pun intended.
Pun intended, yes.
Zoltan played
Dobra, czyli to jest niekanoniczna
a part
część
in,
Diablo.
Diablo 3 story, and
Yes.
of course we saw him in Diablo Immortal as
W mojej
well.
głowie to
Yes,
jest
Zoltan was one
niekanoniczne.
of the original Haradrim. Good old Uncle Tyrael gave him the original Soul Stones. It's like, hey, I trust you, take care of him. Zoltan went a little bit off script, and he's like, what if I made these better? And so he created his
Siemanko,
Dark
właśnie
Souls
sram
game,
i na YouTubie
which
oglądam.
was his own
Zajebiście.
kind of flawed attempt at ending the eternal conflict. It didn't go quite as he expected, and the rest of Rodham said, "We don't really like what you're doing. You got to get out." So they killed him. We're too frightened of you. But Zoltan and Ayujan knew each other in their youth and became business partners and eventually friends. And they shared this vision of, if we can create our own version of constructs and create this alternate power source that's not using demonic magic, the loom.
Ej, myślisz, że oni to ćwiczą przed
These
pokazaniem tego na
constructs can fight
streamie?
heaven and hell, and humanity can flourish. Unfortunately, it didn't go as expected. They couldn't get it right. And Zoltan was just like, you know what? I'm going to move on to bigger and greater things. This is a failure. Let's move on. And Ayujan was like, no, we have something here. Let's keep going. And unfortunately, that created a rift.
Ej,
in
mają źle
friendship.
kompresor ustawiony i
And that
babkę
rift
strasznie
allowed for the
przycisza w
demon
trakcie
Malthus
mówienia.
to infiltrate their work. Malthus
Nie,
is
nie
a
mogę
demon
słuchać
that you're
tego.
gonna,
Po prostu, kurwa,
encounter
bolą
in
mnie
the
uszy.
quest line and then fight an Uber version of him later in the season. He's a little bit different than
Babka
our
ma
typical
takie
demon.
wahania.
Big, scary guy with horns. Like I said before, we took inspiration from Sin War, and they have a lot of different types of demons. They have different abilities, different shapes. One of them is like this stone liquid mouse.
A czym ona
mouse
gada?
with a mouth on top.
Opowiada
And so the
historię,
original
która
Malthus was like this
stoi lorowo
red nest,
za
and that allowed him
stworzeniem
to
narracji
sneak
do
into-
trzeciego
sneak
sezonu
into
Diablo
corners that he
4
wasn't supposed
i
to.
dlaczego wprowadzili
Malthus is
konstrakty.
a named demon,
Tylko, że
and he's
opowiada
one
to
of
w takim
terror.
stylu, jakby
Very
to opowiadała
unimportant
komuś na
hierarchy
imprezie,
hell.
że
That
Zoltan
kind of
poszedł
bothers
to i zrobił to,
we
a potem
joked
pomyślał
around
o
on the
tym.
team that he had a
I to nie
death
jest prowadzenie
in hell.
narracyjne, tylko to jest
So
takie
when
o
we
dupie
found the
maryny.
opportunity to sneak into Sanctuary and to corrupt
To
the
nie jest
vaults,
kwestia
he's like,
głosu,
"This
że
is
jest
my- this
irytujący.
is my time to
To jest
shine. This is my
kwestia
kingdom, I'm
bardzo
gonna
źle
rule it."
ustawionego
I mean, he did
Majka.
that
Ma bardzo
successfully
duże
for many, many
wahania.
years, and he might have gotten away with it forever,
Widzicie, że
except
ona
he was
mówi
a
i
little
ją
bit
przycisza
too
i podgłaśnia. To
prideful.
jest tragicznie
He's like,
ustawiony
"I'd like to
kompresor.
sneak
No, ale
out
to jest stream z
and
Diablo
leave the
4,
vault."
nie? To
Yeah, he's not satisfied with the vault.
Nie są
He now
raczej
wants
znani z
to
jakości.
start trying to
Yes.
take over Sanctuary itself.
And that's where the player comes in.
Yeah.
So I think we have footage of the quest line.
No,
the
ma
early
dynamikę,
parts.
no. Słuchaj,
We're
tym
going to start in
muzykiem
Dea
jest coś,
Cool, where Malthus's
Ale
influence
tak mi się
has
wydaje, nie?
seeped in.
Nie wiem, może ktoś
Villagers
potwierdzi.
and
Słuchaj, jesteś
demons
muzykiem.
don't
Mi się wydaje, że to jest
typically go
kwestia
well. They can't
kompresora
even
po
imagine
prostu,
their
że
insurance
leci góra, dół
but
i
they
jest
hire you and they're
taki...
like, hey, something's going on. Something
Nie ma
up north,
normalizacji
please
poziomu
figure it out
dźwięku,
for us.
czyli to, do czego
So you
kompresor powinien
find
doprowadzać.
the first vault, and you delve into it, to try and get a sense of what's going on. And these are where you're going to start seeing the first hostile
wolty
constructs
mamy.
that Malthus has corrupted.
Dzięki
And
Podwalsku
find
za
your own
trzeci miesiąc.
construct. You start finding pieces of it. You're going to keep traveling through, and eventually you're going to find Ayujan, who is in a less perfect than ideal situation under Malthus's influence. You eventually free
Boss,
him.
patrz.
He's like, thank you so much. I don't even know what's going on, but let's figure this out together. And he fixes the Seneschal construct for you. He's like, you're probably going to need this as we delve into and force Malthus
Nie
out.
da się słuchać tego. Nie dość, że babka po
Yeah, and here
prostu
we're seeing like part of the quest line, like obviously building
w
up.
brzydki
and
sposób
kind of
się
creating
wysławia.
your
Taki
own seneschal
Yep.
construct, yeah.
I think
nie
they have
potrafi
footage of
zbudować
the
narracji
Malthus fight
odpowiedniej,
as
to
well.
ma jeszcze bardzo źle dźwięk ustawiony do tego. I to
So
jest...
Malthus is our first stationary boss. He uses the environment, the hazards in the room, as well as his glaive to smack you around. There are different elements in the boss fight that are going to periodically switch. Like I said
fajna
before, he's,
mechanika.
you know, this red
Akurat tego
mist, but
strzelania,
for
lubię
this fight,
takie.
he is
Dobre rzeczy są do
possessed
dodawania.
the largest construct he could find, the Guardian.
Ej, te takie wypadające potki
And
na
the
ziemię
luminous in the
z bicia
background.
bossów
Yeah.
mi się
So,
kojarzy z taką
you know,
mobilką, wam też?
Imagine then Malthus is pretty much become like the embodiment. It's the vault itself, and the vault is now coming alive to try and kill
When
it.
Bijesz
you
kogoś i
delve into
piniata
the
z
vault,
niego
he's definitely going
wylatuje
through his
potki.
literal body.
Yep.
He definitely wants you out. He doesn't want you in there. He's going to do he'd throw everything in the kitchen sink at you.
Yep.
We also have footage of our new seasonal town, the Gate Hall. This is kind of the gateway between the vaults and the upper world. You're going to go through it in the quest line, and then it is going to turn into a town for you to use. Has a waypoint, so easy travel. Most of the vendors.
I chyba
that you
chodziło o
know of,
gateway. A
see
co
here
inaczej
that
to
they're actually
wypowiedziała.
construct vendors that Ayujan has fixed for you to help you out.
Teraz zmieniło znaczenie w
And here you're going to
wypowiedzi.
be accessing the vaults. You can also access them in the overworld if you choose so.
Też to
It should be a really
słyszeliście?
convenient place for you to visit and turn into your main hub for the season.
Yeah, we expect a lot of players will be hanging out here
Yes.
in the gate hall, since all your vendors will be here. It'll be easy access to the vaults and everything. So I have the new hub specifically for season 3. So yeah, sounds really
excited.
cool. Yeah, really excited for the quest line and story for season 3. Obviously, we talked about Seneschal Constructs and how that's actually going to be a big part of the storyline. And people have been talking about it all this week with, you know, seeing the footage of like, wow, it
Czwarty
looks like we
kupić
have these
Diablo
little
4 za
companions
60
with us
złotych.
now
Yep.
for season 3. So Dan, can you
myślę,
talk
że
us
Nedek
a
by ci
little bit about,
zapłacili 60
what
złotych, to nie
Seneschal
warto.
Constructs are
Yeah,
for
so
players?
the Seneschal Construct is a
Wolver,
seasonal
dzięki za taki
companion.
miesiąc.
And the seasonal companion is kind of the embodiment of your power chase for the season. So every season we try to develop a new type of power chase, and you know, power is really important to our players.
Ziobą
Obviously,
chyba
this is a
crasha
game
na
about becoming
Witcherze,
super
nie?
powerful and killing lots of demons, and we're always trying to find new ways to do that. So we really wanted to stretch ourselves this season and, you know, find a way that players hadn't seen before. And so that is how the Seneschal came into being.
Czemu nie
Now, the
patrzysz w
Seneschal
kamerę?
is this little construct. Well, maybe not so little, but it follows you around. And it has different skills and abilities.
And I
I
will
tak do
note-
mnie nie przemawia.
I will note, you can pet your construct, your
The most
Seneschal
important
construct,
part.
but
Yeah.
just
Tak,
you have
do
to
mnie
be
nie
able to.
przemawia
So,
sposób
yes,
prowadzenia tych
Important.
Campfire
Yeah.
czatów. Tak mnie, on
And
jest
so
irytujący moim
you can
zdaniem.
have two skills.
Path of
on
Exile
your
to robi świetnie,
Seneschal
jak
construct.
oni robią dosłownie prezentacje i
Those are
tłumaczą
given
strukturę
to,
sezonu.
The construct using what
Path
is
of
called
Exile
a
robi to
governing
tak
stone.
dobrze,
And
że tam
governing
możesz
stones
nie wiedzieć
are
nawet o
these
tym, że
semi-precious
jest
stones that
sezon,
you can find
przyjdziesz i wszystko
throughout your
zrozumiesz.
adventures
Tam
in
możesz
season
wybrać
3.
randomowe
They
15
drop in
minut
a lot of those
wypowiedzi
repeatable
i
activities I mentioned, which we'll cover soon.
zrozumiesz, o czym gadają.
There's lots of different types. I think there's about 12 that you can slot
Oni
in.
to tak bardziej tłumaczą jakby, nie wiem,
We weren't
student jak
satisfied
robił
with that,
prezentację na
though.
studiach i
'Cause, I mean,
swoim
okay,
ziomeczkom z
12
roku coś
skills, it's
tłumaczył.
cool. Don't get me wrong.
Siamy, Mesik.
But we wanted to allow players really to modify those skills however they saw fit. And so we've also developed
Chciałbym z tego jakiś content
27
wyciągnąć, ale jest
different tuning
ciężko.
stones, another type of stone that you can slot in then to modify that skill. And so you've got those two governing stones, and then each governing stone has
nie,
three
to boli.
different tuning stones that can modify it and just create really wild combinations of powers that'll allow players to experiment how they see fit. And so kind of with that breadth of powers, then you've got a lot of different options for being able to kind of round out your build and create
Czemu
new
oni tego nie
types
pokazują
of
na przykładzie?
ways to kill demons.
Awesome.
Czemu nie wezmą
That's
jednej
very
osoby,
cool.
która
Sounds
będzie
really
to
cool.
ogrywała i
And
to
I
będzie
think we
pokazywała, a
might
druga to
actually
będzie
have,
opisywać?
think we do.
examples and footage of like, you know,
Dokładnie.
what some of
Yeah,
these
so
would
let me tell you what's going on here. So
Dokładnie.
we brought up our
Czemu od tego nie
construct
zaczęli?
menu. And this is in the inventory UI, but it's its own separate UI, so you know your construct is not going to take up your traditional inventory space. And this construct has two governing stones equipped right now. One is
Pretty
called
much.
Focus Fire, which was that beam of fire that was coming out. The other one is called Lightning Bolt, and you can see it shooting some lightning bolts. Like I said, two skills, not too bad. You're killing some folks here. But we wanna amp things up a bit. So in addition to being able just to get stones as drops from activities, you can also craft stones. And so we've gone to our gate hall here, and we're crafting a new stone. We're gonna see what we get. In this case, it's a pummel stone, a governing stone. have that skill.
Jezu! Naprawdę
So,
kraftując rzeczy w
it's just gonna count towards XP, towards
u
leveling up
Vendora,
pummel.
to ci się tworzy skrzynka,
and
którą
I'm gonna
musisz
kit
otworzyć jak
out
w
my,
grze mobilnej,
Seneschal
zamiast
a
po
little
prostu
bit
ci
different.
wsadzić randomową rzecz
we've
do
got
plecaka
Focus
jak na
Fire.
hazardzie.
And I think the first thing we're gonna
Naprawdę
add
musi
is
ci się
voluminous
otworzyć
support.
skrzynkę, którą musisz użyć i potem to
Fancy way
podnieść
of
z ziemi.
saying that it's gonna increase
Czemu
the
oni dają
area
takie...
of effect
Po co?
for your
Po co
attack.
kurwa? Co to jest
we're
TikTok
also
stary,
gonna
że
add
będą tapować
electrocution.
skrzynki?
Now, even though Focus Fire is a fire attack, electrocution is going to add some lightning damage to it, and it's also going to add a little bit of chance
Po
of
co
stun.
zwiększać
And so
ilość
now we're
kliknięć
dipping our toes into this
wytwarzanych
crowd
przez
control.
gracza?
And then finally, we're
Co oni
going
są
to add
deweloperem
arcing support.
myszek,
And arcing
kurwa,
support's
że będą
really cool.
farmić ilość kliknięć,
Arcing
żeby
support
ludzie szybciej
allows your
to
abilities to chain.
zużywali sprzęt.
And so now let's see what that power is going to look like when we bring it back up.
No dobra, czyli masz jednego, masz dwa
So
skille,
here
tak?
now,
Robi
you
mob
can see that
i do
focus
każdego
fire
skilla
is chaining
wrzucasz...
amongst enemies. You can see that some of them are getting stunned, little electricity around them. And
300
it had a bigger
drzemy,
area
jak
of
po.
effect. Similarly, if we were to apply some of these to the lightning bolt attack, let's say we gave it multi-shot in that arcing support, now it can just blast through
Dobra, nie
enemies.
jestem całkowitym
So
antyfanem.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so it
got a
kinda-
lot of
System
options.
We're kind of seeing some examples of what players can
Wiecie,
potentially
na
do
czym
with
oni powinni
their
wybudować
seneschal constructs and
konstrukty?
actually
Na podstawie
make
aury,
adjustments and modify them to kind of suit your specific
które by
playstyle.
miały
I think a big
konkretny
question is,
wpływ na
like,
działanie
can you
twoich
actually
skilli.
add,
To jest to,
you
czego
know,
nam
maybe
brakuje w
some,
Diablo 4.
status effects or things
Aury.
like that. Like, can you
Co się robiło w
potentially,
Diablo 2?
add in a tuning
Brał się
stone
merca,
that may make
stakowało mu
enemies,
się
like, more
aury.
for
Yes,
instance.
absolutely.
Co się robiło,
So, again,
co
we
się robi
wanted
w
to
PoE?
give
Stakujesz
all of
aury.
you a lot of different options to
Konstrukta
play with.
powinni
We want this
zrobić
to be a
wokół
toy that you
systemu
can
aury.
experiment with. And so that means that,
A nie
you
wokół
know, some of the
strzelania.
examples we showed were more damage dealing.
Dlaczego?
where the
Bo my
seneschal's
jako
doing the
gracze
damage.
chcemy mieć
But then we also
kontrolę
wanna give
nad
players
tym,
the
co
ability
robimy z
to
naszą
just kind of
postacią,
set up,
a nie
you know,
bazować
enemies
na
for you to
tym,
go in
czy
and,
konstrukt
land
wystrzeli
the
lub nie
killing
wystrzeli w
blow.
kogoś,
So,
kurwa, cios.
there are a lot of different support stones that can make things vulnerable.
Nie ma właśnie
bleed
ani
things,
Juska, ani Adama.
electrocute them.
Jest tylko Adam
Kill them.
Łuczarz.
I mean, the list goes on. I
Yeah.
mean, pretty much any of the, you know, the verbs in the game.
So your
Yeah.
possibilities are massive with
Yes.
what you can do with your seneschal. And you know, one thing, this is actually something that Sean White, who was in the video,
Yep.
our Dev Insights video before the actual
Tak,
start of the
dokładnie,
stream,
o to chodzi, Kawon.
pointed out yesterday
W hack and
on social media
slashu powinieneś czuć, że
players
output
that were
damage
asking a
pochodzi
little
od
bit more,
ciebie.
for more clarity on some items.
Dokładnie.
But, the seneschal construct actually does scale.
Wiadomo,
one
są
with, like,
buildy,
specific,
które bazują
like
na
secondary
summonach,
stats or even
ale
or,
nadal one wtedy
yeah,
bazują
things
na
that are
takiej
associated with
matematyce, że
your
ty
actual
stakujesz
character.
damage
So
tych
things like
summonów
attack rating
poprzez
or,
aury
crit
i
chance,
różne
for
takie
instance.
buffy
Yeah,
i
it was
wtedy
very
też czujesz
important
ten
for the
output.
seneschal to feel as if it was an extension of you, if you wanted to be that. Also,
Poza
we
tym
really
coś
didn't
pokroju
want to get,
SRS-a,
you know,
no
a
jest
seneschal
takim
that was just
semi-casterem,
outclassed when he got the level
semi-summonerem, nie?
100, because then
Yeah.
where's the fun,
Ale...
right?
No
So,
nie.
yes, absolutely, the seneschal will become more
Konstrukt ma
powerful with
złą
you.
konstrukcję, słuchajcie,
Yeah,
moim
so
zdaniem. Jest
seneschal
na złej
constructs
podstawie
obviously playing a
wybudowany.
huge role. And
W Diablo
with
nie
the
chodzi o
construct
to,
and you now being able
wiecie
to
jaki jest problem
customize
Diablo
and,
4? To nie
change
chodzi
things
o
up
to,
for how
że
you
w
wanna
tej
play.
grze
There's new
potrzebujesz
challenges
dodatkowego
that are
źródła
associated
damage'a,
with,
który postrzela karabinkiem.
the
Piu, piu, piu,
season
piu,
three
piu,
season of
piu.
the construct,
Tylko
and one of
potrzebujesz
them is
czegoś,
vaults,
co napędzi
which I
twój
know we
build.
do wanna dive a little
Dzięki
bit
człowiek
more
za czwarty
into,
miesiąc, dzięki
specifically.
Niko za czwarty
So,
miesiąc.
yeah, do you guys wanna talk a little bit more
Potrzebujesz
about
czegoś, co
vaults?
wejdzie
Sure.
w synergię
Vaults are a
z
new
twoją
dungeon for the
postacią,
season.
a nie dodatkowego
Four
elementu
types
gauntleta, który
of,
będzie robił piu, 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 piu,
Like I said
piu.
before, they
Bo
are
tym jest
basically
kurwa
extensions of
konstrukt. To jest
Malphite.
bez sensu.
And because of that, he has turned the hazards inside of them
Dlatego,
into,
jeżeli jest problem
enemies in and
w
of
tym,
themselves.
że
We wanted
gra
to
jest
explore
zbudowana
the
wokół
fantasy
6
of
skilli
a
i są tego
environment
świadomi, że
that was
chcą dodać
hostile.
coś, co będzie miało dodatkowe
Ready to kill you
skille,
often
to zbudujcie
and,
konstrukta tak, że
so they're
będzie
filled with
aktywował się w
hazards,
odpowiednich
that
momentach, gdy
spinning
ty
fire
będziesz
to
wykonywał
death,
jakieś konkretne
floor
akcje,
plates
więc
that
będzie
come
wchodził w
alive,
synergię z twoimi
arrows
skillami
that shoot out
lub
of the
zbudujcie go na
walls,
poziomie
and with our
aury.
construct enemies.
Skoro jest problem
We have some
z zabindowaniem
footage of the
odpowiednią
vaults as well,
ilością
to kind of walk
skilli
you
na
through it.
pasku, to pozwólcie zrobić konstrukta wokół aury.
Constructs in them per usual. These,
No nie, no
because they're
ty
so,
chodzisz postacią,
hostile
strzelasz i
and
masz stary
dangerous,
peta,
we
który
wanted
chodzi i
them
robi
to
piu,
have
piu, 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 piu,
be
piu.
lucrative and be
Dzięki Mesh za drugi miesiąc
so
suba.
we have a lot of different loot. I think a little bit later in the video there's like an explosion of gold, and that's just going to be common. And our dungeon designers, typically with the dungeon experience.
Nie no, generalnie ten konstrukt, to ja wam powiem tak. Moim zdaniem konstrukt mógłby być świetnym przedłużeniem postaci w Diablo 4. Sam o tym mówiłem, że ta gra potrzebuje systemu mersów, który w Diablo 2 dodawał jej dużo głębiej. Ale niestety nie zrozumieli, dlaczego my potrzebujemy przedłużenia naszej ręki i dodali, pomyślcie sobie tak, czy jak gracie w Diablo 2, to merc pokroju merca z pierwszego aktu, łuczniczki, w pierwszym akcie jest jakkolwiek pożyteczny, gdy po prostu wchodzi i se strzela? Nie, on nie ma żadnej wartości wtedy. A czy merc z drugiego aktu wprowadza jakąś wartość, bo daje ci aurę? Tak.
vaults like.
Czy ta łuczniczka
what-
da ci
like,
wartość, jak zaczniesz
tons
używać
of
swojej
traps here.
skilli
I know
i
that there's some gameplay associated
zacznie
with
ci
like
ściągać
kind of,
armor z
avoiding
przeciwników?
them and rewards
Pewnie.
associated with
I
them.
dlatego to tak zrobią wtedy
absolutely.
2.
So,
groszy.
certainly
Jakieś
Madeline has
aury,
outlined a lot of the
jakieś
risks
skille,
associated
inne
with vaults. I mean, those
Porozmawiajmy
hazards
o
are going to be
poważnych
pretty
sprawach, na
unforgiving.
których gra stoi.
But if
Co
we're
nowego
putting a
witam
lot of
shopie.
risks in front of you
Jakiś
guys,
skin konia
we want to make
zapis.
sure there's a
Są
lot of
już
rewards
pokazali nowe
too. So
rzeczy w
you
item
saw a
ten.
little bit of it already with like some of the basic chests in the vaults have been souped up, so they're more rewarding than those chests you'd find in other dungeons. But there's another mechanic at play too, and that's called Zoltan's Warding.
Generalnie
So
nie, no
as you enter
serio, ja
vault,
wam powiem, nieironicznie,
after
uważam,
you've
że
cleared,
konstrukt,
some
czyli
of
coś
Malphas's influence out of the vault,
na podstawie
you can
tworzenia
find the
swojego
statue
merca
of
tej grze
Zoltan
było
Pool,
giga
because, of course,
potrzebne i ja o tym
Zoltan Pool,
mówiłem.
He has to have a statue.
He's
of
got to have
himself.
statue in every vault. I mean, that's just how he rolls, right? So,
Niestety został
if you're
wybudowany
able
na
to
złej
find
podstawie
a
logicznej i to jest,
it's
to
called
jest
a pearl of
problem
warding,
tego.
you can offer that to the statue, and
nie
in
potrzebujesz
return,
chodzącej
the
wieżyczki, która
statue
będzie
is going to
strzelać,
grant you Zoltan's warding.
a potrzebujesz
This
przedłużenia
is a
twojego
buff.
buildu.
It doesn't really help your combat
Jezu,
too
trzy
much,
legendy
but what
sobie
it does is it gives you additional rewards, and you can see right there, there's kind of that glowing one to the side with the icon. That is a ward-woven chest that contains extra rewards if you're able to keep that buff. And so as you get better and better at the vaults, you're going to start basically
prawda, Ignacio.
challenging yourself to keep the buff. And you keep the buff by avoiding the hazards. And so the gameplay really becomes focused on trying to make sure that you're moving as cleanly as possible through the vaults, in addition to fighting the enemies in order to get the highest payout.
And
Problem
I
logiczny, jak dla nich
if you
1000
make
plus
like
20%,
mistakes, like
to
I know I
1000,
will
to
make mistakes.
1020.
Like
I will
there, I am a person that gets hit by like every single trap under the sun. Are there ways of being able to like help mitigate like some of those types of mistakes?
You can have multiple stacks of buffs. So one pearl is, I believe, 3 stacks.
Yeah.
And so if you want to go
Ej,
grind
to
the
byłoby
overall
dobre,
activity
co
with
mówisz,
pearls,
Bodzio.
like, okay, I have
Jakby
a
dało
bunch
się
of stacks, I have
konstrukta
a really good chance.
nakarmić
And if you
legendą
don't
lub mocą legendarną
make it, and no stacks left, there were 2 chests at the end, you still always get a
i miałby wpływ
loot,
na
but the super
twoje
clean
pasywy.
comes from.
Jakbyś go dosłownie robił
So
jak Iron
so
Golema.
there are opportunities for players to actually get multiple chests.
Yes.
And you can actually have multiple stacks of warding to essentially create a buffer if you know
Yes.
you're planning on playing a little bit more sloppy.
If
or
you
something
really,
like that.
really want to brute force your way through, you can, but you've got to invest a little more time.
Got it. No, that makes sense. That's great to know. And like, I guess with the Pearls and Overworld activity, I know that has like to earn those types of buffs. Like, how do players actually end up doing
Right. So that's our second repeatable activity that I'd mentioned, which is the Arcane Tremors. And so Arcane Tremors is a new type of overworld activity that's really localized around the entrances of the vault. So remember how we were talking about Malphas, and Malphas's sights have become grander now that he controls all the vaults. And so all the constructs are starting to spill out into Sanctuary and cause trouble. Additionally, some new types of hazards have unearthed and are starting to appear around the vaults.
Będzie za pół
And so
godziny
it's your
sklep.
job to every so often go in and beat back, all these construct invasions or incursions, essentially, that are creating the tremors. And so I can talk a little bit about this activity. We can queue up some video for that too. And so here
Widzowie tam na YouTube,
you've
zostawcie
arrived and you
lajka.
see basically a roaming band of constructs. And, obviously it's your job to go in and kill them and send them back to where they came from. But that's not all you need to do within this activity. What you're looking to do to really advance the activity is look for these cores that you can use to draw out Malphas's most powerful lieutenants. And so you're getting a core here from an obelisk, which is an overworld hazard, and you've got to make sure to not get hit by that. And if you collect enough cores, you're able to deposit them in a brazier, which you can see on screen here glowing. And the brazier is a signal that you are now challenging one of the heralds of Malphas. And the herald of Malphas you see appearing right there. You and hopefully a bunch of other of your friends will, gang up and defeat the herald of Malphas. get some cool rewards in addition to those pearls that we were talking
Nienawidzę
about
takiej
before,
narracji.
which you can then use to
Spotkasz coś
supercharge
na
your
mapie,
rewards
będziesz mógł z
elsewhere.
kumplami
Awesome.
wziąć to,
Yeah, and I
rozwalić,
know, like, this
dostaniesz
being
z
an
tego
overworld
super nagrody.
activity, you know, one
To
thing
brzmi jak
that, and this is
sprzedawanie gier
based off the
mobilnych.
feedback that we've gotten from the community as well, even with Season of Blood, there was Blood Harvest, which were overworld activities, and now there's kind of activities everywhere. And they all have different various rewards for the player, whether that's vaults, whether that's doing some of the activities on the overworld for this season. You have opportunities of actually being able to get rewards kind of all over the place.
Yeah, our intention is for season 1, you kind of stayed in tunnels, and
Yeah.
then season 2, you kind of stayed in the overworld most of the time. We didn't want to make the players feel like they're stuck and they can only stay in one place and this is it. So the intention is you do some dungeons, you do some overworld activities, maybe do some bounties along the way. You should feel like you're mobile and not. Hey, I
Nie,
have
nie
to
mogę
stay
z
here.
tego ustawienia dźwięku, stary.
Yeah, and just another thing that I know we briefly touched on, which was vaults and how there are nightmare
Christian.
variations of that.
Yes.
And that's something that is additional to just going through vaults as well. So.
Babka chyba
the
Polka,
vaults
tak mi się
are
wydaje, bo ma polski
fully
uśmiech.
dungeons in that respect, and so we have the ability and have made nightmare versions of all of these dungeons. And the nightmare versions of the
Smiles in
dungeons
Polish.
obviously have more difficult combat, but they also have a lot more rewards. So those chests we had talked about before, the ward-woven chests, you actually get more of those as you advance in the nightmare system. So then your vault runs become even more and more rewarding in that case.
Yeah, and like, how would you access something
Nie
like
wiem,
that
panie
specifically?
Piotrze.
Right. So we're going to use the Nightmare Dungeon sigil system, but we've created a way that the game can now award unique seasonal sigils, and in this case, they're called vault sigils. And so we did that because, you know, for those folks who really want to focus in on vault play, you can earn the vault sigils, and now you can target farm the vaults instead of leaving it up to random.
Patrzcie, target farming znowu
One last
wprowadzają.
dungeon, the
yes.
mega uber
Kurde,
dungeon.
niesamowite.
It's kind of it's very
Ja
large.
tylko
It's
ja
the
bym chciał
best,
tylko zaznaczyć, że w
features of all
przypadku
the
target
vaults
farmingu
put into one, and that is where
to
Mountain
fani Diablo 4 się pruli,
So
że nie
you'll
chcą,
be
żeby z gry
questline,
zrobiło
you'll defeat
się
him,
Diablo
and then
2
Uber version
znowu
of him
i żebym
as
nie gadał o tym
Yeah.
target farmingu.
And so there is
Nagle
an Uber
Blizzard
version
ucieka
of
się do
Malthus
target farmingu.
that is even more
Kurwa.
challenging than the quest version.
Stare stworzenie
And,
konkretnego loot table'a. Nagle
he kind of
okazuje się, że
sits
ma sens.
parallel to the current boss ladder, so you don't need to do him for the boss ladder, but it's certainly going to be a bonus for you if you do.
Awesome. So yeah, way more additional content in this season. And we
Ty, ale
have
faktycznie
a lot
w
of
tym
different
kontencie jest dużo
ways of being
nowego
able to play
kontentu.
and take your character. You can do
Pytanie,
it,
czy na
actually
ile
just in the
godzin to jest
overworld.
content,
You can
ale
actually use those
wprowadzili
activities
kilka
to help
nowych
you out in
mechanik,
the
nie?
vaults. You can do nightmare variations of the vaults.
Tylko
We have
widzicie, nadal toczy się to
Uber
wokół jednej
vaults now,
bardzo
with
istotnej
a
rzeczy,
larger, more
itemizacji.
difficult vault,
Wytworzenia odpowiedniej
with,
marchewki na
with,
kiju.
you know, a new boss
Co z
here
tego,
for
że będziesz
season
mógł w
3 as
grze
well.
robić
And this is
3
just
nowe
a little
czynności,
bit of what we
jak
have for
nadal to
season
będzie
3,
prowadziło do
of
tego
course,
samego
with
nudnego
essential
wyniku.
constructs,
To jest
which will be
problem tej
around
gry.
with you
Ta
all
gra
the time.
potrzebuje przybudowania
And
systemu
with
skilli i
that, we,
przedmiotów.
of course, have one
Tu może
additional
być
component.
500 różnych rzeczy, które będziesz
And
mógł
that's with the
robić,
gauntlet and leaderboard.
ale nadal to
And
będzie
I will
nudne, bo twoja
caveat,
postać
like, I know
będzie
we mentioned this in the
bezcelowo
blog
zakładać
earlier
nowe
this week. So the
przedmioty,
gauntlet
które
and
się po prostu
leaderboard
będą
are actually not
świeciły na
going to
zielono.
launch
To
at
jest
the
największy
start of
problem
the
Diablo
season.
4.
And that's
Itemizacja
really
i
because,
kurwa
you know,
układ skilli.
we want players to actually go through the season and actually grow and
I oni
learn
cały
the
czas
season
naklejają
with their
taki
character
plasterek,
before
takie
we actually
postaci.
launch the leaderboards. So
Ty,
we
to
will
damy
have
ci możliwość
information
na przykład
on when we
zakładania
actually do
jednej
launch,
nowej mocy na
gauntlet
postać.
leaderboards,
Ty, to
really
damy ci
soon.
konstrukta,
But,
który będzie strzelał
Dan, I know,
dodatkowo.
wants to
I
kind
chuj
of
w to,
dive
że ty
deeper
sobie rozwiniesz
into
tego
what
konstrukta, bo ty
leaderboards
rozwiniesz sobie
are
tego
and what
konstrukta
the
i na tym się to
gauntlet is for
zakończy.
players, so they have a better idea.
Twoja postać nie ma żadnej marchewki, nie ma żadnej osi rozwoju. Ma bardzo nisko zawieszony sufit. Ma bardzo niską różnorodność buildów.
So we can go in a bit more depth here. And
Zobaczcie,
hopefully
ile się
start
tworzy
to
pytań w
answer some of your
przypadku
questions.
nowej ligi PoE. Jak
So the
ludzie się
gauntlet
pytają,
is another new dungeon
czym będziesz
type.
grał nową ligę?
The gauntlet
Czy ludzie zadają sobie takie
is
pytania a propos
something
Diablo
that
4,
unlocks
jakim
with the
buildem będziesz
overall
grał? Nie,
leaderboard
bo to nie
feature
ma
in
żadnego
World
znaczenia
Tier
w
4.
Diablo.
And basically, that means that it's targeting more of your in-game players at this point. Folks who have really decided on a build, they're starting to really round it out, It's become more powerful, and
No
now they want
wyobraźcie
to prove
sobie,
their
wcześniej
might.
mogliście robić dungeony,
Not just to
teraz
themselves,
będziecie
but,
mogli robić
you know,
dungeony z
obviously to show
pułapkami.
off and have
Czy nagle
bragging
system
rights.
rozwoju
So,
postaci i budowanie jej będzie ciekawsze? Nie.
The gauntlet itself
Będzie mniej
new
nużące, ale
type
nadal
of
nie będzie
dungeon is kind
ciekawe.
of based around 3 different principles. The first
Dlaczego
is that
ludzie
it
grający w
is
PoE
fixed seed.
mają połowę
The second
czasu
is
swojego
that it
grania
is
w PoE
non-linear.
spędzonego w pobie?
And
Bo to
thirdly,
jest ten
like I
ciekawy
said, it's
element,
there to
kurwa,
prove
rozwoju
your might.
postaci.
And so I'm
Praca
gonna
nad
kind of
nią.
unpack that a little bit.
Szukanie, co można w niej polepszyć, co można w niej zedytować, do czego można dążyć. W Diablo nigdy czegoś takiego nie robisz. Nigdy nie myślisz o tym, do czego będziesz mógł dążyć. Po prostu wchodzisz, bijesz moby, wyleci ci przedmiot, który się zaświeci zieloną strzałką, to go zakładasz. I tyle. W Diablo 4 nawet nie ma takiego etapu, gdzie podejmujesz jakąś decyzję kosztem innej. Ile razy w normalnym hack and slashu dochodzisz do sytuacji, w której myślisz, kurwa, potrzebuję, nie wiem, Chaos Resa, ale muszę go wybudować kosztem czegoś innego. I myślisz sobie, dobra, chcesz ściągnąć trochę z DPS-ów, chcesz ściągnąć trochę z życia, chcesz ściągnąć trochę z Energy Shielda, z Movement Speeda, muszę wybudować coś więcej. I muszę to zrobić kosztem innej rzeczy, którą też chcę mieć. I szukasz tej odpowiedniej linii optymalizacji twojego buildu, by doprowadzić do finalnego efektu. W Diablo 4 zakładasz item, który się świeci strzałką na zielono.
A lot of it is trying to figure out your way through the dungeon each week. And then finally, proving your might is about killing enemies, gathering what we're calling proofs of might, and then trying to get the highest score possible. So it's not about just going fast. Certainly going fast helps. But it's really about how effective and efficient are you at combat. And that's going to be reflected in your score. And so at the end of a gauntlet, you're going to get a score, and you're going to say, okay, can I do better than that? And we're going to say, well, you know, we've got a couple targets you can try and hit, but really you're going to be shooting for those leaderboards.
Yeah.
But let's circle back on strategies a little bit. Yeah. And I think we've got a little bit of
Czemu
video
oni
to help
cały
with
czas
that.
dorabiają narrację do prostych
So,
rzeczy?
here's
To
the
są
gauntlet
leaderboardy,
right here.
rozumiemy to. Jak chcesz być kompetytywny, to
For all
jesteś.
intents and purposes, looks
Już nie
like a normal
tłumaczcie
dungeon.
ludziom, jak kurwa
But we said,
działa
again, it's World
leaderboard.
Tier 4. It's targeting level 100 players, so we're going to throw a dungeon boss at you right at the
Why not?
start.
Yeah, and I will note, like, I know we're mentioning level 100. Technically, you can do
Yes.
Gauntlet before level 100. It's just probably more efficient to do it at level 100 just because it is an endgame activity and it'll be challenging.
I mean, if you think you're ready to tackle the gauntlet below level 100, by all means. It's not tuned that way. And so here, you're fighting, you know, the Tomb Lord, and he's pretty powerful, but you're more powerful. In that case, you defeated him. Now, the cool thing about defeating that boss is it doesn't drop loot, it drops a shrine. And that shrine can then be used as a power-up to, you know, further increase your power within the gauntlet. And there's other types of new shrines within the gauntlet, too. We just hit previously here a pillar of proving, and that's a shrine that actually respawns all the enemies around you. Now, why would you want to do that? Because you want to kill them again and get their score, right? So we've got the pillar of proving, we've got the pillar of glory, which is a way to basically get a multiplier on your score. And we've even got chests scattered all throughout the dungeon that you can earn keys for. And you see keys up in the corner on the HUD there. And those keys give you even additional score. So a lot of the strategy
Dzięki
of the
stary za pierwszy miesiąc
is,
suba.
you know, as a
Witam w
solo player,
ludologicznym
at least,
gronie.
trying to find
Widzowie, zostawcie lajka na YouTubie, bardzo dobrze. Po tym streamie przechodzimy do streama z Xboxa, którego będziemy z dobrodziejem oglądać. Zobaczymy, jakie będą zapowiedzi nowe.
Something we saw in the footage, obviously the first thing we ran into was a boss, like a Tomb Lord right there. And so you could technically take that Tomb Lord further into the dungeon if you want to.
You're not stuck in the room.
You're not stuck in the room.
You can draw that Tomb Lord right next to another shrine and do a combo, and then start building up even higher score.
Exactly, and so that's the thing I think with gauntlets. Like we're going to start to see some really, and because they change weekly, and these leaderboards will be weekly, we're going to see players kind of create different combinations of what's the best way of optimizing for the best score possible? You know, taking advantage of the shrines, taking advantage of the chests, taking advantage of like should I drag a bunch of enemies over here just because I know I'll have a shrine ready and stuff like that. So it's going to actually be really interesting to see. And I think it adds even more complexity to the idea once you start adding additional players to it as well.
Yeah, no, we had a lot of fun testing this, especially in parties, because parties can then start dividing and conquering what you need to do in order to get that high score. And so we expect party scores to be, frankly, ridiculous.
Parties, got to play with friends there for that and stuff. And so I know with leaderboards, when you're looking at leaderboards, like I think we actually have an image of the leaderboards here, just like a quick throw up here. But you can see, based off of how leaderboards are, there is an overall leaderboard. For players, but then you have the ability of actually being able to filter by class, so you can see where you are within your own class.
Yeah, so each class does have a unique ladder, and that's those first 5 icons you see right there represent each of those classes if you're playing solo. And that was really important to us because we were talking about that component of fairness that we want. To make sure that, the competition is a level playing field.
Może byście powiedzieli, na jakiej podstawie wynik działa finalny, co?
For example, probably shouldn't be compared to, a rogue or something like that. And so we allow each class to compete independently. And then there are also ladders for each of the different party sizes, because obviously a 4-person party probably is going to be able to cover more ground than a 2-person party. And so that actually creates 8 ladders with leaderboards right there. And then we also multiply that by 2 because we have separate ladders for our hardcore players, because they are they're competing on hardcore mode.
Słyszeliście, co oni powiedzieli? Że będzie 16 laderów tak naprawdę różnych. Będą 4, czyli po jednym dla każdej klasy. Na 1, 2, 3 i 4-osobowe party i kolejne na hardcora. 16 laderów stworzyli. Nie, to jest 16 kurwa tabelek tego samego. Jezu, ja nie mogę słuchać takiego bullshitu. Ale to ładnie sprzedaje cyferki.
And all of those leaderboards we mentioned, you are also able to filter by friend and by clan if you want to be able just to see the people you're familiar with and not compete with kind of the community at large.
Yeah, so it's catered and customized to allow players to actually really get into almost like a granular type of look of how they may compete against, just maybe everyone, or maybe just everyone on Xbox, or maybe just your friends, or maybe just people in your clan, which is really cool to see. And of course, with leaderboards and, tackling leaderboards, as you mentioned, it is a separate dungeon. There are kind of rewards associated with leaderboards as well.
That's right. So, be straight up here, though. The ultimate reward of a learboard is glory and bragging rights.
Exactly.
And so, only the top 1,000 players during the week are going to be able to get on the leaderboards. And it's going to be a pretty big accomplishment, but we got to do a little bit better than that. And so, not only do we have the weekly leaderboards, we have the Hall of the Ancients, which is the top 10 players from every ladder each week get written to the Hall of the Ancients. Now, unlike the weekly leaderboard, the Hall of the Ancients don't reset. And so that is a permanent record of everyone who is the best of the best each week, each season. And it's not going to ever get erased, going to be there forever.
Raz na tydzień będziecie zapisali w leaderboardzie, którego nikt nie sprawdzi i zostanie tam na zawsze. Który jest co tydzień resetowany.
Trust me, I know what I'm doing type of thing.
But we've got some additional rewards too. We've got some neat cosmetics for folks who, maybe don't hit the Hall of the Ancients, but they hit another threshold on the leaderboards. And we've also introduced another type of reward called seals. Now, I like to think of myself like I could compete, but I know better than that. I am never going to be ranking on those leaderboards ever. And so the seals are meant for players, frankly, like me, who just, not ready for the leaderboards yet. And so what the seals are is, let me describe it this way. So we've got that ladder we were describing, right? And each rung of that ladder is going to have a seal associated with it. And so as you get better and better each week for that gauntlet, you're going to be able to earn seals and start ranking up in terms of the seals that you have. And it's going to go from kind of, I believe it's called Seal of the Blooded, which is the baseline, all the way up to Seal of the Worthy. And once you hit Seal of the Worthy, now you're ready, according to the game, to be able to compete in the leaderboards. So for myself, I'm probably just going to be trying to get Seal of the Worthy
Nie, nie czaję, kurwa.
but it's going to be
right
pretty
there
cool.
with you.
Seal of the Worthy is still something that's pretty cool that you can display to other players to let them know that, you know, you're still pretty good at the
Ej, kto
leaderboards.
rozumie
It's just
system
maybe you're
Sili?
not on the
Powiedział,
leaderboard
że
itself.
w grze możesz robić gauntlety,
We
jest świadomy tego, że on nie jest na tyle dobry, by kompetytywnie walczyć z innymi graczami.
Yeah, so
Przez co
lots
dostajesz
of cool
sile
stuff for season 3.
dla
Gauntlet being a
casuali,
huge part of it, as we
i
mentioned
które
at the
cię będzie
beginning
wrzucał
that,
na konkretne
Gauntlet
poziomy
won't be at the
gauntleta,
start
tak,
of the
tak
season,
rozumiem.
but we do plan. It is a season
I
3
najwyższy
thing.
poziom
It
tego
is coming
skilla
in season
będzie
3. We
czymś,
just want to make
co
sure that players
będzie
can actually
świadczyło, że jesteś godny
grow
na
their
to, żeby
characters
wejść w
at the beginning
gauntlet.
of season 3. It's not like a speed run type of thing, just to jump into Gauntlet, especially on the first week of Gauntlet, if we were to have it with the launch of the actual
Ale
season.
totalnie nie rozumiem, jak to ma działać.
Players can, we'll hear more news about when Gauntlet actually hits.
Ale dlaczego
really,
masz nie
really
robić
soon.
Gauntleta i
We'll
zdobyć
have
mniej
information on
punktów?
that, and we'll be sharing that with players.
Tylko chodzi
But
o to, że
thank you
Gauntlet
guys
będzie miał taki
for
poziom,
sharing a little bit about
że na przykład
some of
będzie
the
wymagał,
components.
nie wiem,
Of course, this season,
80-poziomowej
new
postaci,
season,
więc
there
wprowadzili
are,
sile, które będą
there's a new season
emulować
journey,
Gauntlet,
and
ale
there's
na
a new
powiedzmy
battle
30
pass. There's a
poziomie.
lot of feedback that we got from players and some data that we actually saw from players related to season journey and some
Nie wiem.
optimizations that we've kind of made to make it a little bit more friendly, a little bit better for players specifically. I know
Wy
one
też nie
big
wiecie,
thing
to jest
that
najpiękniejsze w
we
prezentacji.
ended up hitting on specifically was
Yes,
for instance,
Battle
like
Pass.
the one
Nie,
of the
sorry,
components for
progresy
season journey
sezonu.
last season was like, hey, you need to kill 10 people in PvP,
Yeah.
which made it a little difficult for some
Yeah.
people, and we even saw that in some of our data from players.
We're looking over the data, we're listening to your feedback, and
Słuchają
PvP
feedbacku.
objectives
Blizzard, ja
just
powtórzę
aren't
jeszcze raz,
that
$1
popular.
milion to moja
And
cena,
so,
wchodzę i naprawiam tą grę.
because we're always keeping an eye on, you know, improving the game and improving the objectives for the season journey. We decided to modify some of the
$1 milion
PvP objectives that
i
exist.
zatrudnię
And
się
then
u was na
there's
rok,
one in
na pół etatu
particular that we ripped
oczywiście,
out. It
bo też
just
będę
had such a
streamował
low
i naprawię
completion
wam tą
rate.
grę.
So yeah, there's been optimizations based
Yeah.
off of player feedback and of course data that we've seen from that end. And then I know that one
Diablo
big
4
thing is
jest do
like
naprawienia
some
w
of the
kilku
rewards
mądrych
associated
decyzjach.
with
Naprawdę,
season
w tej
journey.
grze nie trzeba dużo, żeby ją naprawić, ale trzeba przebudować
Yeah,
której
no,
solary.
it's super important for us to
Których
make
oni nie
sure that the
rozumieją.
season journey is rewarding. I mean, it's one of the backbones of our season, and
Ta
if
gra ma
folks
dobrą
feel
podstawę
as if they're not
mechaniczną, ma
compelled
strasznie
to,
zjebaną
go in
matematykę,
and participate, then that's a miss for
itemizację
us.
system
So,
skilli.
we
Przebuduj
went
to.
back and really took a close look at the rewards and amped them up in a couple of key ways. The first way we amped them up is we made sure that it was a
Skopiuj
good
rzeczy z
vehicle
Diablo
for
2.
earning some of those governing
Do
stones
Diablo
and
4
tuning
Insta
stones we
Profit.
talked about. And so
Serio.
you actually get
Skopiuj system
an
itemów z
advanced
Diablo
look
2 do Diablo 4.
for some of those governing and tuning stones if you play the season journey. And so you'll get the drops a little
Wyjeb
bit sooner, and
skalowanie
that'll give you a
świata.
little more of a leg up with specking out
Daj
your
3
finish off.
poziomy trudności, normal,
The other
nightmare,
thing we
hell.
did is we looked at those later chapters, you know, Champion and Slayer and Destroyer. And we said, wow, those still don't feel rewarding enough. I mean, we're asking players to do a lot there. We're asking them to go into the boss ladder, defeat bosses, you know, really invest a lot of time. So we wanted to make sure those rewards felt meaty. And so we added a number of ancestral
Dodaj
legendaries
dokładnie
there,
runy,
including
słowa
some that are
runiczne.
925 eye power.
Nice.
So hopefully that will be something that folks will really enjoy and, you know, get more folks, you know, wanting to take that journey with the season.
Also, something slightly related to season journey and feedback is we got some feedback that previously for our quest lines, you had to complete certain levels of
Jezu,
season
no
journey
niestety
to
ten
even
dźwięk jest tak
progress
źle
in the quest
ustawiony u
line.
niej.
Got a lot of feedback. People didn't like it. We don't want people not to feel good with it. So starting season 3, you can just do it start to finish. There's no season journey break.
Yep.
Very
so
cool.
it's
Awesome.
no longer says level up to, you know, chapter 3 of the season journey.
Yeah,
you
most
can-
definitely. Yeah, it's and again, community feedback has been so helpful for us, especially as we have been iterating on seasons and going from season to season. So it's been super great. Another big thing that's coming with at least season three is it's a cosmetic that I think a lot of players have been looking forward to. First, actually, let's actually jump into all this. Actually, can you throw that graphic back up? There we go. Yeah, so there a lot new cosmetics coming. One big thing I know that was really popular with season 2 was the town portal skins.
Love those town portals.
Everyone is rolling with the blood portal. I am not rolling with the blood portal. I'm like the one person that's rolling with like the angelic wings
Battle
one.
Pass widzowie.
If there's other people like that, like shout out to those people. You're part of my
Ej,
crew.
ja mam wrażenie, że
But
te
there
skiny już
are
były w
also,
grze, albo było
cool new
coś, co
skins
wyglądało
and,
praktycznie
of course, new
identycznie.
emotes that are coming with the new premium battle pass for season 3. And then one item that I think we actually haven't really added to since launch is emblems specifically. Emblems are kind of like on your character title or on your character on the character bar for your screen. I have been rocking the Tree of Whispers one for a long time. I'm going to put it into retirement because we are adding new ones here. I believe we're adding
Emblemy
three, I
teraz.
believe.
Yes.
Też pewnie
You
będzie w
will
Battle
get
Passie.
2 new emblems per
Kolejny element monetyzacji.
your adventures in the season journey, and then 3
Tło
through
panelu
the
postaci
battle
będzie
pass.
zmonetyzowane teraz.
So yeah, we're adding in emblems. I know that's something that people were asking about because we've always had the 3 at launch, and so this now gives you the opportunity of actually collecting additional emblems in season 3. And of course, season blessings are also getting adjusted for the new season, because I know with the last season, of course, they were specifically catered towards Season of Blood. This one is, of course, being updated for season 3, including items that affect like tuning stones, for instance, specifically for players. So season blessings will be getting updated for this new season. And then I know that one thing that people, and something I mentioned in the beginning, which is the boss ladder items, that is most definitely coming back for season 3, so players can expect to have the opportunity of being able to tackle through the boss ladder. And we actually do have some optimizations that we'll be talking about here really shortly related to being able to jump into boss ladders. So yeah, lots of stuff for season 3.
Yes.
Tons of stuff for season 3. Biggest season yet for Diablo 4. And you know, we covered a lot. I'm looking forward to people jumping in. It begins on January 23rd, where players will be able to actually jump in and create new characters for the season. So, Dan, Madeline, thank you guys so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really appreciate it. And then I know for the next part of our broadcast, we're actually going to use some amazing tech. First time we're doing this because we now have 2 different sets. One here in Albany, which is themed like Cathedral of Light. You know, we're in a colder environment. It is cold outside in Albany. I'm not used to that as a California person.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
I landed, lots of snow. But it's like Cathedral of Light, Fractured Peaks, you know, kind of feeling. And of course, we'll be going to Irvine, where we're in like the, I hate to say the bits of hell. Irvine is not like hell, I promise. I lived there. But our studio is like that. And that we are going to be joined by Adam Jackson. Adam, hopefully you're there. There you are. Hello.
Hey, I hope you can hear me. I'm always paranoid.
I can hear you live from Irvine.
Cool.
Adam, you know, they always call it the Adam and Adam show whenever you and I are on. And of course, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the balance changes coming with season 3 and what players can expect, and a little bit about some of the philosophy as well of what you have kind of, or what you want to actually present to the players of what they can expect going forward, especially with Gauntlet being involved. So do you want to take it away?
Yeah, totally. Got lots to talk about today, so